This is Adam Graham from Pretty Much the Present, bringing you a week of old-time radio podcasts. These episodes were originally released back in 2011, and we're releasing them here pretty much as is, with only some extraneous bits such as the opening from all of the episodes after the first episode removed. Because these are old, it should be noted that any offers or promotions mentioned in the episode may not be valid unless they're currently mentioned on the Great Detectives website. Here now is a week of old-time radio detective podcast.
Welcome to the Great Detectives of Old Time Radio. From Boise, Idaho, this is your host, Adam Graham. If you've got a comment, please send it to me. Box 13 at greatdetectives.net. Be sure to cast your vote for the show on Podcast Alley. That's podcastalley.greatdetectives.net. And become one of our friends on Facebook, facebook.com/radiodetectives. Well, it's a new week, and it's time for a new show. We're heading back to January 21st of 1946, and the premiere episode of William Gargan in Ideal and Crime. We'll talk a little bit about the show before we get into it, but I do want to remind you that at greatdetectives.net, I regularly write reviews of detective stories, both modern and classic, as well as articles about Golden Age detective stories, and other Golden Age stories as well. These articles are posted every Friday night, and you can also get them automatically synced to your Kindle. You can try that service out free for 2 weeks just by searching for Great Detectives of Old Time Radio in the Kindle store. Well, William Gargan, at this point in his career, as we're about to get into today's episode, had worked his way up through pictures and through the theater since about the mid-20s. His motion picture work had even won him an Academy Award nomination for his role in They Knew What They Wanted, where he had to struggle with a scene-stealing Charles Lawton. However, with many actors returning from the war, work became scarce for many on-screen stars, so Gargan turned to radio. He did a lot of detective shows, partly because unlike most or nearly every other actor to play a detective role on the radio or television, Gargan had actually been a real-life detective and store investigator, about a combined year over the course of 2 jobs. So he brought some genuineness from it. He came from Brooklyn, and as his father was a bookmaker, he had knowledge of a lot of the characters and types of characters that inhabit these detective stories. Indeed, he ended up playing a detective a lot on screen, including 3 movies as Ellery Queen. Ideal and Crime was one of the earliest of the hard-boiled detective shows. In the early 40s, with Michael Shayne and Sam Spade in The Maltese Falcon, hard-boiled detectives hit the motion picture screen. But it wasn't until 1945 in Rogues Gallery, which you'll hear next week, that the hard-boiled detective came to radio. ABC, which was still a new network after being split away by the FCC from NBC, where it was known as the Blue Network, wanted to take the lead in the hard-boiled detective genre. So they ordered 4 new shows that all premiered on this same night in 1946, including 2 hard-boiled detective shows. The other one was The Fat Man, which we'll hear in a later season, and that was honestly a better detective show. Here we kind of see Gargan in this episode, and throughout the Ideal and Crime series, kind of warming up to the radio detective hard-boiled role. But this, like I said in a recent review, this show gets better as we listen to the later episodes. So we're going to have this one for 3 weeks. And here is Bodyguard to Laura Shields.
I deal in crime.
The American Broadcasting Company presents I Deal in Crime, starring William Gargan as Ross Dolan.
My name is Ross Dolan, and in case you're inclined to say so what, pull up a chair and listen to this. I've been a private investigator for 10 years, except for a short hitch in Uncle Sugar's Navy. I've been a seaman on an LST, a gunner on a PT boat, and even made a parachute jump. That last I don't care to discuss. And just yesterday, they decided to get along without me, so I found myself on my way back to my old hangout, my office in the Melrose building. It was 8 o'clock at night, raining cats, dogs, and several other forms of livestock. I shrugged my way through the main door. Nothing had changed. The foyer still had those silly gilt figurines chasing each other around the molding. The tile floor hadn't split any wider, and the paint was just as cracked as before. Even the elevator man hadn't changed. He just added another dozen wrinkles to that piece of saddle leather he called a face. I called 4th floor. Okay. His light blue eyes lit up with a friendly gleam you find in a pair of 2-cent marbles. The floor slid past as we went up. Finally, the rickety old contraption slid to a stop. I got out and walked down the hall. I stopped at 404. On the door, I read Ross Dolan, printed in gilt letters, and below it, Private Investigation. I was home again. The cab driver tried to gyp me out of a buck. My shoes had sprung a leak in a puddle, and that granite puss of an elevator man didn't even say hello. Yeah, I sure was home again. I slammed the door and felt along the wall for the light switch. For just a moment, I looked out the window and got a panoramic gander at the town I knew so much about. Underneath all that neon and stucco, it still looked cheap and vulgar, or rich and beautiful, depending on your viewpoint. Right now, it looked cheap and vulgar. I lit the lights. The office was clean, thanks to a note I'd shot the building super a week before. I went through my mail, a couple of personal things, a bill from the Chronicle for my new ad. That's about all. I was about to take off my wet shoes when I heard the elevator grunt to a halt on my floor. Light footsteps came toward me. The door opened. She was the kind of a dame you see only in a dream. Tall, dark, and eyes that look as deep as a quarry pond on a quiet afternoon. This baby was class from head to foot, and from elbow to elbow. She seemed surprised to see me and turned to go. Wait. What's your hurry? Sit down. Take it easy. Riding up and down that elevator is quite an emotional experience.
I came up here to see Ross Dolan.
Oh, that's fine. You came to the right place.
But you're not Ross Dolan. You're a sailor.
Oh, you're wrong, beautiful. I am Ross Dolan, and I'm not a sailor. Uncle decided he could get along without me after today.
Uncle?
Yeah, Uncle Sugar. Uncle Sam. Otherwise known as the United States.
Oh, that.
That.
Mr. Dolan, if you're just out of the service, you probably are in need of a job. Would you like to make some money?
I'm afraid I would. Money and I have been strangers lately.
And should I employ you, can you furnish references?
Oh, get out your pencil, lady, and start writing them down. Or would you rather take a fast peek at my file cabinet there? Well, there's the National Life, the American Bank, Johnny Briggs down at Homicide, and... well, shall I go on? There's 10 years of references in that gadget.
What are your charges?
$25 a day plus expenses.
I see.
Just what is this job? And, not to be too pressing, just who are you?
I'm Laura Shields, Mr. Dolan. And I want you to be my bodyguard.
Oh, now, look, if it's just one of those tail around with me and see the big bad man doesn't hurt mama gags, you could do with a cheaper man. Get some character who's short on brains and long on muscle.
You're talking yourself out of a job, Mr. Dolan. Do you want it or don't you?
Definitely, I do.
That's better. My husband and I are living in our house at Laguna Beach. He's John Shields, a promoter.
Oh, I've heard of him.
Could you come down tomorrow?
I guess so. Give me the morning to walk up 2 flights and save 10, and I'll be all set. Ought to be there around 3 or 4.
Oh, fine, I'll expect you. Here's a check for 2 weeks as a retainer.
You were pretty sure of me, weren't you, Mrs. Shields?
Not at all. You'll notice that I've left the top line vacant.
Oh, yeah, so you have. Well, I'll see you tomorrow, Mrs. Shields. And by the way, just what am I supposed to guard you against?
Myself.
Guard you against yourself? Oh, suppose we drop the double talk and get down to straight language.
If you want it straight, here it is. I'm afraid I'm going to kill my husband.
You don't need a private eye, lady. You need a doctor. Or the cops. Why don't you go to them?
I couldn't go to the police. You see, I love my husband. But he's been playing around with someone else.
So, it's like that, huh?
And I haven't been sleeping well. Recently, I've had dreams. I dream I'm killing him. Now I'm afraid.
Don't worry about dreams, Mrs. Shields. They can't hang you for dreaming.
But they've been getting worse. Do you want the job or not?
Well, it's okay by me. If there's any killing, it's not my funeral.
A very misplaced sense of humor.
Yeah, sorry.
When you get to Laguna Beach tomorrow, register at the Seahorse Inn. There'll be a room waiting for you.
Hey, that's a classy foxhole.
And, Mr. Dolan, I hope I can trust your discretion. If word of what I was doing got out, people might think there was something wrong with me.
If people knew what I was doing, they'd think there was something wrong with me, too. I got to Saguna about 3 the next afternoon. It was a typical coast town. Filling stations, drugstores, hamburger stands, and some kids shivering in their shorts. I asked a question. Where can I find John Shields?
His home is on the West Highway. But if you want to see him in person, try Jarvis's Bluebird Inn across the street.
Thanks. There was a trio there trying to play like Paul Whiteman. It looked like a pretty fair crib. I walked to a table and sat down. You couldn't miss Shields if you were wearing dark glasses on a foggy night. He was 6'3", wore dungarees and a sweatshirt, and tried to look like a combination of Randolph Scott and Clark Gable. He didn't even come close. But there was something worth looking at. The babe he was gabbing with. She looked the way most Hollywood blondes would give their peroxide to look like. And the guy who bought her waitress uniform certainly had a surveyor's eye. I sat there. I waited. I waited some more. Finally, I got tired of that. Hey, miss.
Yes, sir?
I'll have a beer, please.
Yes, sir.
I watched her walk away, and it was better than watching Army's backfield. She came back.
That'll be 15 cents, please.
You from L.A.? Doing anything tonight?
That'll be 15 cents, please.
Okay, honey. I'm not only set back on my heels, but my pass has been intercepted and run back for a touchdown.
Thank you, sir.
This was the babe that Shields was nuts about. He hadn't taken his eyes off her during the whole sequence. I drank my beer, and then I went away from there. I went down the West Highway to look up Mrs. Shields.
Mr. Dolan. Oh, I'm so sorry I wasn't home when you called before. But I had some errands to run and... Come in.
Thanks.
And here, the living room. And sit down. Have something? Drink? Sandwich? Cigar?
No, thanks.
It's almost 7 and John will be home directly. When he comes, please pretend that you're an old friend of mine. You met me in, San Francisco.
Okay by me.
And I'll call you Ross, and you must call me Laura. That will ease things up a bit, and, you won't mind being an old friend?
Lady, please.
What have you been doing the past 4 hours?
Oh, nothing much. Looking over Saguna Beach, watching your husband.
John? Is he down at that... with that...
If you mean was he down at the Bluebird with the blonde, you can pick up your dots.
There are times when I could...
Laura, hey, Laura, where are you?
That's John. Shh. And remember the time we had all those dances on the roof?
Well, what's this? Old home week?
Oh, darling, this is an old friend from San Francisco, Ross Dolan. Ross, this is my husband, John.
Hiya, Ross.
Hello.
You better get going with the canapes and the drinks, Laura. We're having a party.
Oh, darling, again?
Yes, again. Invited Sims, the writer, Judd, the golf pro, and my dear, dear friend, Bill Jarvis.
Jarvis?
Yeah, you sort of met him this afternoon. He runs the Bluebird.
Oh, yeah.
And old Phineas will be here, too.
Oh, John, please, not Phineas.
Yeah, Phineas.
Phineas, Ross, is the old man who lives in our beach shack down below us. John gives him a little money once in a while, but... oh, he's so dirty. John always teases the poor old thing.
Yes, sir, old Phineas. Sure is my meat.
Oh, dear, please, not with Ross here.
Who cares about him? Your friend, not mine. Let him in, Laura. And break out the drinks.
Oh, Mr. Jarvis, come in.
Hello, Mr. Shields.
And Phineas, how nice to see you.
Glad to see you. You sure look tip-top, Mr. Shields. Never saw you looking better.
Yep. Look as fit as a fiddler crab.
Ross, this is Phineas Baxter. And this is Bill Jarvis.
Glad to know you.
Howdy.
This is Ross Dolan.
Seems to me I've seen you... Oh, yeah, sure. You were in my place today.
Well, Phineas, tell me, how's the beachcombing today, huh? Scraping much away from that old devil sea?
I do all right, Mr. Shields.
Mr. Shields? What kind of talk is that? You know, Dolan, Phineas here is something of a local celebrity. He's an author.
Jonathan, please.
Yes, sir, he's got something other folks in Saguna haven't got. But then, who wants it?
You're quite a comic, aren't you, Mr. Shields? Ever thought of going on the stage?
No, Mr. Dolan. Mr. Shields just having a little mite of fun at my expense. I don't mind.
Yeah, that's right. John always ribs old Phineas.
Forget that, you fellas. What did you mean by that crack, Dolan?
Oh, nothing.
Backing down, huh? How'd you like a good punch in the nose?
John, he's our guest.
He's your guest, not mine. I watched him make passes in the cafe this afternoon. Now I find him in the house making passes with my wife. You sure get around, don't you, Dolan?
Put your hands down, Shields. You're making a chump of yourself.
Is that so? Well, take a look at this.
Well, if you want it that way.
John, are you hurt?
I reckon he got on the wrong side of you, mister.
Yeah, reckon he did. You should have known that my wrong side is my right side. You'd better trot down to the local barber shop with me, Dolan. That eye of yours is breaking out in more colors than the Sunday supplement. Oh.
Call me later, Ross. Say in about half an hour.
Jarvis and I went down to the local barber. It turned out to be a pretty good Joe. In about an hour or so, my eye looked almost human. When the barber got through, I walked into the phone booth and got Mrs. Shields on the phone.
Everything is under control, Ross.
How's Mr. Shields feeling?
A little groggy, I guess. He took the car and went for a ride along the shore.
Want me to come up?
No, I'm all right. Besides, there might be complications. I'll see you tomorrow.
Right. Good night.
Good night, Ross. You'd better go to bed.
Yeah? Who's there?
Police, open up.
All right. 1 o'clock in the morning. What a time to entertain a flatfoot.
You Dolan?
That's what it says down on the register.
Get dressed.
What for, mister? I just got undressed.
Or reverse it, chum. We want you down at the station.
Well, that's a novelty. Whatever for, officer?
We want to talk to you about a fellow named Shields. Know him?
Yep.
See him tonight?
Yep.
He give you the black eye?
Yep.
Okay, that's all. Come on.
What for?
I want to talk to you about John Shields. We found him sitting in his car out at Dana Point.
Why, the old rascal. Did he have a cubby little blonde with him?
We didn't see her. He was sitting there alone, with a bullet hole in his temple.
I guess I read too many dime detective stories while I was in the Navy, because I got the idea that all small-town coppers had red faces and big feet. Tommy works at Nita. He was an ex-homicide man from the big-town police crew. He kept me in his office all night, and believe me, he knew all the questions.
So, you're a friend of the family, is that Dolan?
Yes, you might say that.
Yeah, I might say it, but what I want to know is what you might say.
What do you want me to do, Works? Break out my ever shop and tell you about my lifetime?
Don't get smart with me, Dolan, because we know all about you.
I'm blushing in shame.
Well, if you are, it doesn't show. We know that you never met the Shields anyplace before. Not until the other day when Mrs. Shields went up to the city and hired you.
And, what happened in the second chapter?
We wonder why she hired you.
Now, Pally, you got me. I was hired to come down here and get a shiner from her husband. See it?
He's a good workman. Ever see this before?
32 automatic. Mind if I pick... This is the baby that did it, huh?
That's it.
Never saw it before. I carry a 38 myself.
I know. We found it when we went through your things.
You boys don't miss a trick in Saguna, do you?
We can't afford to, Dolan. Here, you can take your gun back. I presume you've got a permit to carry it.
Didn't you find that, too, when you went through my stuff?
Here's something for your book, Sonny. The only fingerprints on the death gun were John Shields. There are powder burns on his temple.
That would make it suicide.
Maybe. Except I remember that appearances aren't always what they seem to be.
Ah, Works, old boy. You've been cribbing from the copybooks again.
Okay, smart guy. Here's another thing. Don't leave town.
Why, I wouldn't dream of it. I love the quiet air here in Saguna Beach.
Never mind Weisenheimer. Beat it for now and tell Mrs. Shields I won't need her anymore either. She's waiting outside.
Oh, is she your guest, too?
You might call it that. And Dolan.
Yeah?
Keep your nose clean.
Oh, I do, pal. That's why I carry this box of Kleenex.
Ross, is everything all right?
Come on, Mrs. Shields. Let's get out of here.
Mr. Works, doesn't he...
He doesn't, beautiful. Out.
Oh. Does he think it's murder, Ross?
Works? He's not sure.
Ross, what do you think?
Did your husband have a lot of enemies?
More than he had friends. Sometimes I think everybody hated him. I've seen old Phineas so angry that he looked positively murderous.
I can imagine. What about the blonde at the saloon?
John definitely promised me he was through with her. But still... Oh, I'm so confused. Maybe it was suicide after all.
Yeah, maybe it was. See you later, beautiful.
Ross, where are you going?
Where polite ladies wouldn't dream of going. To Jarvis's Bluebird.
The Bluebird? What for?
Have to see a man. About a woman. Hiya, Jarvis.
Well, if it isn't my black-eyed friend, Mr. Dolan. How's the glimmer this morning, Dolan?
How does it look to you?
It looks like it needs a drink. Have one?
Thanks.
Luck.
And to you.
Too bad about Shields, isn't it?
Yeah. Mr. Shields is all broken up.
He was such a husky guy. Never thought he'd bump himself off.
No. Well, he and that blonde were pretty close.
Yeah. Very close.
I wonder how she feels.
Pretty bad, I imagine. No fun, losing your boyfriend.
Had it that bad, huh?
Looked like Mrs. Shields was on the way out. And, she was in.
Oh, what's her name?
The blonde?
Yeah.
Betty Warner.
Uh-huh. Where is she now?
I, fired her.
Uh-huh. Where's she live?
I'm, not sure. She moved recently. Why?
Oh, nothing. Just thought she might be looking for a new playmate.
You work fast, don't you?
Why not?
Now listen, Dolan. Play off that Warner dame. She's smart. Also, she's, tough.
Jarvis was right. The Warner babe was smart. It took me half the morning to get her address. I finally located her in a motel out of town a ways. I took a cab and pulled up and started to look around.
What do you want, mister?
I'm looking for Betty Warner. What's her number?
Nobody want to live in here, mister.
Well, maybe she's using another name. She's a gal about so tall with blonde hair, and she walks like this.
On you, it don't look good.
Oh.
There's a girl who might be your friend down in cabin 8.
Thanks, pal.
What might your name be?
It might be Smith.
Yeah, that's what they all say.
I walked past cabin 8 and around the back. There was a rear entrance, a door with a window. I could look through and see the Warner babe packing like she had 1 minute to make the train. I opened the door and walked in.
What do you want?
Me? Oh, I just want to make with a few words.
If that's what you want, go down to the library, get a dictionary. You can make with all the words you like.
But, I want to talk to you.
Look, Mr. Dolan, I don't like you. I haven't liked you since you walked in that beer joint and cracked wise. Now get out of here, I'm busy.
Leaving town?
No, I'm just packing because I like the feel of leather.
Did you know that John Shields is dead? He was found in his car at Dana Point with a bullet hole in his head.
No, it couldn't. That couldn't happen to him.
I told her the whole story, and she sat there chewing her lips like she was wearing chocolate instead of lipstick. In spite of the fear and trembling show she put on, she looked as guilty as... Well, she calmed down after a while, and we talked. We had a drink. We topped that one off with several more. And finally, she promised to hang around town if I promised to keep my mouth shut about where she was. It was a good trade. And pretty soon, I went down to old Phineas Baxter's shack on the beach. It was dark, and he lit things up for me.
Yeah. Sure, I hated him, Sonny. I guess I hated him more than anybody in town.
You're chatting your way right into the gas chamber.
You think I did it, eh? Well, supposing I did. Supposing you just prove that little item.
Skip it, Phineas. Why did you hate him?
You know why. You saw the way he treated me last night. Well, Sonny, that ain't nothing compared to what really happened.
No?
You never knew I backed him when he first got to be one of them promoters, did you? You never knew it was old Phineas who put up the money, did you? You never knew they never paid me back a single cent.
Shields was quite a guy.
He was a thieving rat, that's what he was. And when I went busted and asked him for my money, he stood there laughing at me. And gave me this old shack to live in and $10 a month for polishing his car.
Never paid off, huh?
John Shields never paid off anybody. And there's something I know about his marriage, too. Hey, what's the matter with the lights?
Where are your fuses?
They're right outside the door.
Well, let's see whether one of them blew out or not. Boy, it's as dark as Hades out. Oh!
Mr. Dolan? Mr. Dolan, where are you? Hey, what's going on around here? Turn off that flashlight. No. No. No, I won't tell. Honest, I won't.
The noise boomed around in my head, and I was sure I was back on the beach at Okinawa with the guns going full blast. Then I opened one eye and sat up in a hurry. I looked for old Phineas and found him lying on the sand next to me. Somebody had used an iron bar on him. He wasn't so nice to look at. I tried to remember what had happened just before the lights went out and remembered only one thing. Phineas saying,
"There's something I know about his marriage."
My gun was gone, but I still had my flashlight. I looked over Phineas's place very carefully. Oh, very carefully. And found what I was looking for. Also, the old man's gun, which was something else I wanted. I staggered back downtown and made a long-distance phone call. Then I went on an errand.
Ross Dolan.
What's wrong, baby? You seem surprised to see me.
It's rather late for a visit. Besides, I'm in seclusion.
Yeah. I'm beginning to get the drift of the whole thing. Where is he?
There's no one here. Oh, you're drunk. Look at your head. It's all bloody. I'm going to call the police.
You're not going anyplace. Where is he?
Let go of me!
Let's drop the injured and grieving wife pose, huh, baby? Where's Jarvis?
How do I know where Jarvis is? What are you talking about?
It's a little late, Mrs. Shields. When I looked around Phineas's shack, I found out all about it. I found the old man's scrapbook. Or didn't you know he kept one?
Ross, listen. Listen. Let me tell you all about it.
Baby. Let me tell you. You wanted to get rid of John Shields the worst way, and you hoped to set me up as a fall guy. Or the dame down at Darvish's joint. She could be a fall guy.
You're crazy. I could have divorced him.
It doesn't gel, beautiful. You forget the scrapbook. There's a little item in there. It tells about a woman who was paroled from a mental hospital into the custody of a man who married her. A man who wouldn't divorce her because he was in love with her. Oh, yeah, Shields was a louse, all right, but he was in love with you. That's why he was making a big play for the Warner babe, trying to make you jealous. But you were nuts about Jarvis, who was an ex-con.
I could kill you.
Like you knocked off Shields? When he went for that ride, you were in the back seat. You fed him a Mickey in his last drink. Then you took his gun, held it in your handkerchief, and shot him through the temple.
Ross, listen. Listen, I didn't do it. It was Jarvis. He did the whole thing. He planned it all by himself. He forced me to help him.
Okay, Laura. I might have known you'd pull that. Reach, Dolan.
I was afraid you weren't going to make it, Jarvis. Or were you in the kitchen all the time?
You're a pretty smart handy-andy, aren't you, Dolan? Just stand where you are.
You were the one who knocked off the old man. You followed me, didn't you?
You're talking, Dolan.
And you killed old Phineas when you saw he was going to spill.
I think I'm going to let you have it.
No, you fool. Someone will hear the shot.
So what? I've got Dolan's gun. I'll hold it in a handkerchief like you did to your old man. Then you'll find the body.
Just like that, huh?
Yeah. Just like that. Well, Dolan, it's been nice knowing you. Like they say in Spanish, hasta mañana.
Yeah. Hasta mañana. I was watching that trigger finger, and when it started to whiten, I hit the floor, heaved sidewise, and gave it to him with the old man's gun. His bullet splashed into the carpet at my feet. I shot him through the heart. Hasta mañana always means until tomorrow, except there'll be no tomorrow for Jarvis. His light was out for keeps. Well, after I turned Laura, screaming and kicking, over the works down at the station and got myself cleared of any possible charges, I got a little sick of Saguna Beach and thought I'd powder back up to the city, stopping along the way for one or two, and listen to a little music, even if it did come from a jukebox. Well, it was more fun listening to those corny pop tunes than you'd imagine, because I picked up the blonde Betty Warner and took her along. And you know something? She wasn't nearly as tough as you'd imagine. Good night, folks.
Don't forget to listen again next week, same time, when you will hear William Gargan say,
I deal in crime.
I Deal in Crime, starring William Gargan as Ross Dolan, is a special presentation of the American Broadcasting Company. Written by Ted Hediger, directed by Leonard Reeg, with original music composed and conducted by Skitch Henderson. Dresser Dahlstead speaking. I Deal in Crime came to you from Hollywood.
When it comes to the business of making music, we know one fellow who's dean of them all. It's Paul Whiteman. Paul has picked some songs that have proved they're here to stay, the top tunes of yesterday. It's a show you'll enjoy called Forever Tops. This is ABC, the American Broadcasting Company.
Welcome back. Interesting to note that they also, in this episode, kind of played the returned veteran angle that Let George Do It, which would premiere later in 1946, also played off of. When researching the series, one thing I actually came upon was a note Jim Widner, in his commentary, thought that Gargan lacked energy. And I could kind of see this. I don't think it was horribly weak. I don't think Gargan as an actor was ever really this sort of intense character. That wasn't his usual characterization. But definitely he did need to step it up a bit. And I think you'll see that he did in future episodes of this series, as well as in the next Gargan series we'll play Barry Craig Confidential Investigator. Well, we have a comment on another show that we used to do on Mondays. Pete writes, regarding Box 13, I first found Box 13 on KNX 1070 in Los Angeles, when that news station would devote 2 hours of programming each day to golden age of radio. They eventually stopped running the shows, unfortunately, but by then I'd purchased cassettes of Box 13 through Radio Spirits. I'm thrilled that all these great shows are now available for free as downloads, and appreciate the good people who upload these shows via blogs and websites. My top favorite shows are Box 13, Nightbait, Tales of the Texas Rangers, Dragnet, and Richard Diamond. Well, thanks so much, Pete, and that's certainly a good list. All right, well, we'll be back tomorrow with our very last episode of Nero Wolfe. As I mentioned earlier, next week, Rogues Gallery will be coming to you on Tuesday. And join us next Monday for another episode in I Deal in Crime. Well, before we do get into today's program, I want to encourage you, if you've not already, to try Audible. Audible brings a world of great audiobooks to you. So if you're on the run, you don't have time to read, you can always listen to an audiobook. And you can choose from classic fiction, the latest bestsellers, and in addition to this, you get a complimentary audio subscription to either the New York Times or the Wall Street Journal. Go to audibletrial.com/great detectives. That's audibletrial.com/great detectives. Well, let's get into today's episode of Nero Wolfe, The Case of Room 304.
Transcribe. Ladies and gentlemen, the ringing of that phone bell brings you mystery, adventure.
Nero Wolfe's office, Archie Goodwin speaking.
Hello? Is this Mr. Wolfe?
If it's for me, I'm not here.
Hello?
What if it's a case?
If it is, tell them no.
I will not.
Hello?
Confound you, Archie. Do as I say.
Hello?
Hello, is this Mr. Wolfe's residence?
Yes.
Is this Mr. Wolfe?
Yes, Mr. Wolfe speaking.
Oh, I am in very much trouble. Could I see you, please, immediately?
Well, now, yes. What kind of trouble, miss?
Give me that phone, Archie.
No.
Hello?
Sorry, I had to turn the radio down too loud, you know.
Oh, may I see you right away?
Well,
I'll pay you $1,000 as a retainer fee.
Yes, indeed. I'll take the case. Come right over. The address is 601 West 35th Street.
I cannot, Mr. Wolfe. I just cannot come there.
Well, where do you live?
I am staying at the Polo Hotel, room 304, and I...
Hello? Boss, that was a shot. Hello? Hello?
Ladies and gentlemen, it's that renowned genius who is the bulkiest, most ponderous, and most brilliant detective in the world. Yes, none other than that chairborne mass of unpredictable intellect, Nero Wolfe, created by Rex Stout and brought to you in a new series of adventures over this NBC network in the person of Mr. Sidney Greenstreet.
We have usually referred to this story as the case of room 304. The girl on the phone had a decided foreign accent. I wasn't quite able to decide what nationality she was, but it sounded like French. Anyway, there was what sounded like a shot, and then dead silence for a second or two. Hello? Hello? Hello?
Well, Archie, another woman? Bah.
Mr. Wolfe, I heard a shot, and then the line clicked off.
Trouble. Women, always trouble.
I said I heard a shot on the phone.
Indeed.
I'm going over to her hotel and see what goes on.
By all means, Mr. Wolfe.
Yeah. Huh?
Now that I've been insulted to the tone of being called a radio...
I'm sorry, Mr. Wolfe, but we needed the money, and this was $1,000.
If you'll excuse me, I have to attend to my orchids, Mr. Wolfe.
What about the girl, the shot?
Fascinating, isn't it? You figure it out.
Okay. I've got to get over there. Room 304, Paul Hotel. So long, boss.
Good luck, Mr. Wolfe. Please phone me from time to time.
Room 301, 302, 304. What do you know? The door's open. Oh, hello.
Who are you?
Archie Goodwin. Now it's your turn.
I'm Jay Bream, pilot for Jan Airlines.
You seen... Yeah, I guess you have. This girl's been shot.
Oh, that's all?
Yeah, dead. Real dead. What do you know about this?
I don't know anything. Say, who are you?
Looks like you're in a spot, pal. You better start digging, hadn't you?
I got here a few seconds before you did. I knocked on the door. The door was partially open, so I pushed it wide. And...
Go on.
Well, there was no answer. I couldn't see anyone, so I came in, and there she was.
You know her?
Well, yes. Why do you think I came here?
That's what I'm trying to find out.
Look, what right have you got asking me all these questions? What's it to you?
Did you ever hear of Nero Wolfe?
Of course, who hasn't?
Like I said before, I'm Archie Goodwin, Wolfe's assistant. Now, would you rather talk, or should I call the police?
I've told you all I know.
Who is she?
Helen Rennie.
French?
I don't know. European, anyway.
Why'd you come here tonight?
I have a dinner date with her.
You mean you did have?
Yeah.
Let's turn her over. There. An automatic in her hand.
Yeah. I never saw it before. Hey, I wouldn't use the phone. The fingerprints.
It's okay. I'll use this handkerchief.
Who are you calling?
My boss.
Oh.
Nero Wolfe speaking.
Archie, boss.
Archie, I thought you were Nero Wolfe. You sound very much like him.
Please, boss, be serious.
Oh, but I am?
I'm here at the girl's apartment, the one who called me. She's dead.
Beautiful?
Yes, was very beautiful.
She would be. How did it happen?
Shot. Neat round hole in her right temple. She's married and looks like she shot herself. When I turned her over, I saw a wedding ring on her finger and a .32 automatic still in her hand.
Are you alone?
No, a fellow named Jay Bream, a pilot. He was here when I arrived.
No one heard the shot?
Apparently not. No one showed up yet.
Very interesting. What do you do now, Mr. Wolfe?
Should I call Inspector Kramer?
No, say nothing to anyone. Get over here at once. And bring Mr. Breen, the pilot, with you. Goodbye. That's all you know about it, Mr. Breen?
That's right, Mr. Wolfe. Just like I told Mr. Goodwin here.
The whole thing sounds... Hey, I just thought of something.
Pray tell, Archie.
It can't be suicide.
Oh, and why not?
How can a dead woman hang up a phone?
You finally arrived at that, Archie. Amazing. Of course she couldn't. She was murdered.
Murdered?
Yes, Mr. Bream.
But I thought she committed suicide.
Please, Mr. Bream, it'll be better if you don't think. Where do you stay?
321 West 19th, apartment 5.
And your job?
I've 10 days vacation. Started yesterday.
One thing, Mr. Bream, I suggest you don't leave town. Furthermore, talk is not advisable. I strongly recommend that you adopt precautions.
Yes, sir.
Show Mr. Bream to the door, Archie.
Yes, sir. Right this way.
Good night, Mr. Wolfe.
Good night.
I didn't want to tell you in front of Mr. Bream, but I found this in her purse when I sent him for a sheet to cover the body.
$1,000 check. Made out to Mr. Nero Wolfe.
Well, boss?
I think it's time we phoned Inspector Kramer.
Should I?
Who else, Archie? Who else?
My apologies. I forgot how heavy that phone really is.
Archie.
Oh. Do you want me to talk to the inspector?
I'll do the talking.
Should I hold the phone for you?
Then get me some beer.
Inspector Kramer.
One moment. Here you are.
It's Nero Wolfe, Inspector. I think you had better go over to the Paul Hotel.
Yeah, why?
I believe you'll find a dead woman there.
A dead woman? What is this, a gag, Wolf?
I'm afraid not, Inspector.
Well, how did you know about it? Have you been over there?
Telepathy, Inspector.
Mental Wolf, I'm too busy today to listen to nonsense. Telepathy. Don't give me that kind of stuff. If I find a body, I'll lock you and Goodwin up.
You watch your blood pressure, Inspector.
Never mind about my blood pressure.
One thing, Inspector.
Yeah?
Would you hold off the press for the present?
Why? What are you holding back, Wolf?
Will you stop your idiotic jabbing to what I ask?
Okay. By the way, Wolf, I suppose you know the girl's room number.
Naturally, Inspector. It is room 304. So hurry.
Oh.
Dear Inspector Kramer, he's so fond of me. Archie.
Yes, sir?
I suggest you call the bank in the morning and find the person who is handling Miss Renee's account. Try to bring all her canceled checks over here.
And what if they won't hand them over?
Then Kramer will get an order issued to do so. Simple?
Coming.
Well, where's Wolf?
Where do you think he'd be? In his big chair.
Good evening, Inspector. I expected you before this, Inspector. What kept you so long?
If I told you I had a flat tire, would you believe me? Now start giving, Wolf. What did you know about the dead girl?
Inspector Kramer, do sit down. Relax. Nervous tension is such a deadly thing.
Now listen here, Wolf.
Would you like some beer? Most soothing, you know.
Come on, what's the dope on this case?
Fill the inspector in on the details, Archie.
I was here talking to the girl over the phone. There was a shot, and then I went over to her hotel and found her the same as you did, dead on the floor. And the phone was placed back on the hook.
Come on, Wolf. There's more to this than that. Let's have it.
Really, Inspector?
Who was she?
You don't know?
I mean, what do you know about her? Now get this straight, Wolf. Please, Wolf. What's this all about? A girl's been shot. Her name is Helen Rennie. What's the dope?
Did you have a ballistics report made on the gun?
Well, not in this short time, but I will.
How did you make out your report?
Suicide, naturally.
Archie was talking to the girl on the phone at the time she was shot.
So she chooses to kill herself talking to your assistant.
Why, you big, flat-footed...
Inspector, precisely how can a dead girl hang up a phone?
Why, she,
You see, Inspector, quite impossible. And now I suggest you make out your report murder.
Murder? Wolf, tell me, why is it you're always mixed up in these cases?
That, Inspector, would be as difficult to answer as it would be to convince Archie of the danger of the female of the species.
Oh, what's the use? No one ever answers my questions. I give up.
Oh, Inspector, I do hope you will bring the girls' canceled checks tomorrow if they don't turn them over to us.
What?
The inspector is just going, Archie. Please see him to the door.
I'm not helpless.
Good night, Inspector.
Good night.
Please, boss, can't we have just a little air in here?
You've been out all the morning, isn't that enough?
Gonna get me an oxygen tank to use in here.
Did you contact the bank regarding the girl's account?
I did. I finally talked to the head of the accounting department. He told me about our personal agent here, Mr. Renfrew. He was handling all our financial affairs. I went to see Renfrew.
What did he have to say?
Very little. But he seemed very upset when he learned of her death. I didn't tell him how she died. He said Helen Rene was here buying technical equipment for her government in Europe.
Technical equipment? What kind?
Laboratory stuff.
Did she make any definite purchases?
From the Arrow Company here in town, and Mr. Paul Morio is the head man of this Arrow Company. Mr. Renfrew, her agent, gave us quite a bit of an argument about coming over here today, said it was very irregular to show bank statements. But he finally gave in. I didn't need the inspector's help.
What time do we have the honor?
He said he'd be here at noon.
No. You know I'll be busy at that time.
Well, I didn't think you'd let...
Archie, you never do.
Your lunch will keep just this once, Mr. Wolfe.
Not this once, nor any other time, Archie. You know I have lunch precisely at noon. Not after, not before. Understand?
Yeah.
I surmise you have the address of the Arrow Lab Supply Company.
Yes, sir. You want me to go have a talk with Mr. Morio who runs the place?
Sometimes, Archie. Your conclusions are fantastic.
I'm leaving.
One thing more.
And?
After you return from your visit with Mr. Morio, would you be so kind as to entertain Mr. Renfrew until after my lunch? And don't stand there with the door open.
Sorry, boss. I'll go out through the coal chute. Do forgive me. Nero Supply Company.
Come in.
Oh, Mr. Morio in?
Yeah, I'm Morio.
My name's Archie Goodwin.
What can I do for you, Goodwin?
I'm Nero Wolfe's assistant. You've heard of Nero Wolfe?
I don't get around much. Tell me about him.
How should I answer that?
Any way you like.
Nero Wolfe's a detective. Did you ever hear of a Miss Rene?
Stop shadowboxing, Mr. Goodwin. What's on your mind?
I understand you sold Miss Rene some laboratory equipment.
Is it a jail term? Now listen, Mr. Goodwin, I have a nice, respectable business here, so what do you want? Spill it.
When'd you last see Miss Rene?
2 days ago.
Talked to her since?
Once on the phone.
What time was that?
Yesterday morning.
You called her from your office here?
No, from my hotel room. Now look, let's quit playing cat and mouse. Why all the questions?
Miss Rene is dead.
Dead? Who did it? Now, wait a minute. You don't think I had anything to do with it?
What makes you think anyone did it?
It'd be the only reason cops would get into it.
You know, Morio, I'm beginning to wonder just how long you've been in the lab supply business. You know what a retort is? And don't tell me it's a snappy comeback.
Now, what's the matter, Goodwin? What's eating you?
Look, Morio, I came here to find out something about Helen Rene. Just what sort of equipment did you sell her?
It was heavy stuff, heavy chemical work.
Where is it?
We don't have samples, just pictures. Yeah, we ship it direct.
Oh, so the purchaser never sees what he's buying.
That's right.
Could I see what she purchased?
I'm afraid not, Goodwin. Besides, what difference would it make?
Did Miss Rene see what she bought?
No, I already explained that. Now, I'm busy, Goodwin, so if you don't mind...
Okay, I'll run along. Good afternoon, Mr. Morio. I'm sure we'll meet again. Soon.
Nero Wolfe speaking.
Archie, boss.
Yes, Archie?
Just left the Arrow Lab Supply Company, and as far as I'm concerned, something's rotten in Denmark.
Indeed.
This guy Morio, who runs the company, doesn't sound like a legitimate lab supply man. I think he's running some kind of a racket.
What makes you believe that, Archie?
Just not the type to be in a legit business. Things just don't jive. And she didn't see what she bought.
You believe, then, that he would have reason to want Miss Rene out of the way?
Yeah. Guy made me see red. I wanted to take a poke at him.
Archie, you're an idiotic hothead.
He said it was all heavy lab stuff she bought, and it was too late for me to see it.
Forget it now. Get over here as soon as you can.
Immediately?
Immediately. Have you forgotten you have an appointment with Mr. Renfrew at noon? Goodbye.
Coming.
Hello, Mr. Goodwin.
Mr. Renfrew. Well, who's this? My goodness, come in.
Yes. Come in, my dear.
Thank you.
Mr. Goodwin, I brought my secretary along. I hope you don't mind.
Mine? Why, Mr. Renfrew, how could anyone object?
Mr. Goodwin, Miss Bennett.
Oh, Miss Bennett? First name?
Jean? Do you always use this approach, Mr. Goodwin?
Only at noontime, and my name's Archie. Well, this is a happy surprise. Please sit down, Jean. Allow me.
Thank you.
Well.
Wasn't it Mr. Renfrew you wanted to see?
Yes. Mr. Wolfe will be down shortly, Mr. Renfrew. Please be seated.
Thank you.
Is something wrong, Mr. Goodwin?
Not a thing, Miss Bennett. Not from where I sit.
I don't believe a word he says, miss. His judgment concerning women is not to be trusted.
Thank you, Mr. Wolfe. You're so kind. Mr. Wolfe, Miss Bennett.
How do you do?
Mr. Wolfe?
Mr. Renfro, I presume.
Yes?
Now we can get down to business at hand, Mr. Renfro.
Yes, by all means. I don't understand why we couldn't have discussed this on the phone, Mr. Wolfe. The whole thing is highly irregular. Of course, I know you're trying to do your duty, but...
I prefer not to discuss the dead girl's business affairs on the phone, Mr. Renfro. You should appreciate that.
Yes, I see. Now, what is it you wish to know?
How long have you known Helen Renee?
About a month.
When's the last time you talked to her?
Yesterday.
What time?
Why, about 2:30. I called her from my room. She was here on government business.
You brought the canceled checks?
Here you are, Mr. Wolfe.
Quite sizable amounts, Mr. Renfro. Very interesting indeed.
Yes? You see, Miss Renee made some very large purchases, Mr. Wolfe, and of course they were all quite legitimate.
Would you mind if I kept these checks overnight?
Well,
Thank you, Mr. Renfro. By the way, was Miss Renee right or left-handed?
Why, left-handed, Mr. Wolfe. Why?
Just inquisitive. Now, if you will excuse me, Miss Bennett, Mr. Renfro, I have a very urgent appointment.
Well, if I can be of any more service, don't hesitate to call on me, Mr. Wolfe.
Thank you, sir.
Oh, dear. Poor Miss Renee. I hope the person who did this dreadful thing is dealt with properly.
Indeed.
I must run along now.
Yes, this way. Must you go too, Miss Bennett?
Good day, Mr. Wolfe.
I must, and good day.
See you soon, Miss Bennett. Well, boss, what do you think? Isn't she a beauty?
I'm sure I'm not a fair judge, Archie. Do you happen to know where the Morio warehouse is?
Why, yes. It's at the other end of town near the river. Oh, no, not again.
9 o'clock tonight.
Okay. I suppose you want me to take a gander at what's in the warehouse, break in like a burglar?
Archie, if your mind were free of women, I do believe you could reach phenomenal heights in this your chosen profession.
Left around here with a bunch of old tubes and glassware. I hope Wolfe knows what he's doing. I don't.
All right. Stand where you are and reach.
What's it?
Flip the lights on, Joe. That's better. Now, sing up and tell me what you're doing here.
I beg your pardon. I'm a little deaf. I couldn't hear you.
I said, what are you doing here?
Oh, Ellen. I was supposed to meet her here.
Make sense, will you?
You think I can?
What's the matter, Mac? Visitors?
This bird refuses to talk.
Well, then knock it out of.
You two talk it over. Don't bother telling me how it comes out.
Hey, wait a minute, you. You ain't leaving.
All right, you win. This night is just full of surprises.
Ain't it? Let's see what you're talking.
Hey, who do you think you're shoving around?
Just full of questions, ain't you?
You know, someday you're going to end up by getting into trouble. It's illegal to push people around.
I guess you better understand. So...
Hey, are you kidding?
Get the point? Now, get up. Now, talk.
Why, you
still want to play, huh?
He's out like a light, Mac. What are you going to do with him?
You won't do any more snooping around here.
You know something, Mac? You got an awful disposition. I'm actually scared of you. You're that mean.
Yeah. Now, dump him outside.
Hey, boss. It's me, Archie, remember?
Archie, these interruptions are detestable. Can't you see I'm busy? Is that you, Archie?
I've been busy too, boss. Look at my face. I had an accident.
From your appearance, I'd say that someone else had been busier. All right, Mr. Goodwin, as long as you insist upon interrupting my meditation, start at the beginning.
Mr. Wolfe, I arrived at the warehouse. I went inside. I saw a lot of packing cases and a bunch of old glassware, worn-out junk. 2 men jumped me. I came to lying in the alley. I staggered to a cab and made it home. End of story.
Archie, your repertoire of words is most astonishing. And your description of Morio's warehouse is without doubt most enlightening.
I thought you'd like it.
And now, Archie, I suggest you get Fritz to give you a piece of beefsteak for that eye of yours.
And after that?
I've arranged a gathering for 5 o'clock tomorrow afternoon.
Then I shall repair to my bed to suffer in silence.
You should be more careful on these nefarious expeditions. You might get hurt sometime.
Yes, I've been a careless fellow, Mr. Wolfe. Good night.
Good night, Archie. Pleasant dreams.
Mr. Wolfe, I'm glad you called me early. I was just about to leave town for a couple of days. What is this conference about?
Not at this time, sir, if you please.
I'm glad you could come along, Miss Bennett.
I'll be happy to assist in any way I can, Mr. Goodwin.
Archie?
Right. Well, good evening, Mr. Morio. I knew we'd meet again.
It's no fault of mine, Goodwin.
Please come in. Come in, Mr. Morio. You don't want to keep the rest of the guests waiting.
What do you want with me?
Why, what? Nothing. Mr. Wolfe, this is Mr. Morio.
Sit down, sir. Take the red leather chair.
For special guests, Mr. Morio.
Yeah?
Now, gentlemen, you're probably wondering why I asked you here. Naturally, you know it has to do with the death of Helen Renee. Mr. Morio, I understand you and Miss Renee had some business transactions that involved quite a sum. That she purchased laboratory equipment.
That's right.
Archie told me that your warehouse contained nothing but second-hand junk. It was a shame, Mr. Morio, that this shipment was delayed by a shipping shortage. Otherwise, you might have gotten away with it.
Is this why you called me over here?
It is immaterial to the case at hand. Actually, I'm only interested in Helen Renee's murder.
Hey, wait a minute. You don't think I did it?
Didn't you?
No. Mr. Wolfe, I admit everything you said about the equipment. But I've had no part in any murder.
I see. Mr. Breen, you're to pilot a wallflower. If you had shot the girl and wanted it to look like suicide, in which hand would you put the gun?
Why, her right hand.
Indeed. Where did you first meet Miss Renee?
Boarding the plane at Orly Field, Europe.
Mm-hmm. Mr. Renfrew.
Now, look here, Wolfe. This has gone too far. I won't be put through any third degree. If you'll excuse me, I have to get to the dip.
Sit down, Renfrew.
Well,
Mr. Renfrew, I'm astonished that anyone would be as amateurs as they were in this case.
I don't understand.
Could it be that you killed Miss Renee and attempted to make it look like suicide because she was about to tell me that through forgeries her bank account was $50,000 short?
Well, what reason would I have to kill her?
You told me yourself you phoned Miss Renee from your hotel the day she died. Yet there was no outgoing calls charged to your account.
No, this is nonsense. Ridiculous.
She suddenly became suspicious of you. And you are probably the only person here who knew that she was left-handed.
Well, what does that have to do with it?
She was shot through the right temple, Mr. Renfrew, while talking on the telephone. With a gun in her left hand, wouldn't it be awkward for her to twist her arm around her face and shoot herself? In your excitement, you forgot you had shot her in the right temple.
And what else do you know, Mr. Wolfe?
That you once worked in Europe where you met Miss Renee, arranged to represent her in this country. Only you would know how much she had in the account here.
I've heard enough of this nonsense.
Yesterday, you made a statement. Quote, I hope whoever did this dreadful thing is dealt with properly. Only the police, and Archie and I knew Miss Renee had not died naturally. How did you know that? Unless you are the murderer.
Don't make a move, any of you. I was forced to eliminate her. She accidentally learned about the shortage, and she became most unreasonable about it. Phoned you about it.
Oh, dear me. So utterly weary of these melodramatics. Put up that gun.
I've spent 15 years sweating, trying to get enough money to live the way that I want. And now I have it, and neither you nor anybody is going to take it away from me. I'll kill anyone who tries to follow me out of this house. Oh, no, Miss Wolfe. Stand back.
Mr. Renfrew, don't, please.
I will take that gun from you and...
Stop it, Renfrew. What the...
Well, Inspector, you certainly arrived at the proper time, even if you are late.
What do you mean, late? I've been standing out there listening to Renfrew for 5 minutes.
Boy, that's too close. Glad he missed you, Inspector.
Well, good night, Mr. Wolfe.
Not so fast, Mr. Morio.
I suggest you hold Mr. Morio here for swindling Miss Rennie and her government. And, Archie.
Yes, sir?
Do you know how to care for a person who has fainted?
I certainly do.
Then look behind you. Your pretty Miss Bennett has collapsed.
I'll get it. Hello?
Is this Miss Jean Bennett?
Yes.
Archie Goodwin there?
Well, yes. Just a minute. It's for you, Archie.
For me?
Mm-hmm.
No one knows I'm here. Hello?
I thought I'd find you there, Archie.
How'd you know I was here?
I figured that by the skill you expressed on reviving a patient from a deep faint. Archie, on the way home, I want you to stop at the delicatessen and pick up the following things. Ham, beer, cheese, olives.
My boss.
How do you know you were here?
Pure deduction. That's why he's called the world's greatest detective.
Really?
Come here.
Yes. Archie, you shouldn't have... Archie.
Archie, you listening to me? Oh, well, guess you didn't hear a word of it. Good night, Archie.
You have been listening to The New Adventures of Nero Wolfe, starring Sidney Greenstreet. Tonight's transcribed story by Virgil Reimer was based on the characters created by Rex Stout. This is an Edwin Fadiman production, produced and directed by J. Donald Wilson. In the cast were Harry Bartell as Archie Goodwin, and Lucille Alex, Val Brown, Bill Johnstone, Hal Gerard, Betty Lou Gerson, Vic Rodman, and Ed Bailey. This is Don Stanley speaking. 3 chimes mean good times on NBC. Just listen to the stars on this Sunday's big show. Jimmy Durante, Ethel Merman, Milton Berle, and Gordon MacRae. Plus Meredith Wilson and his orchestra. Your MC on the big show, of course, is the glamorous Tallulah, and you're invited. And on Theater Guild on the Air this Sunday, you'll hear the comedy The Man in Possession, starring Rex Harrison and Lily Palmer. Don't forget, hear Ethel Merman on the big show Sunday on NBC.
Welcome back. Well, one more little inaccuracy here. When Nero Wolfe said, I have my lunch at noon, I was thinking, no, he doesn't. Lunch is at 1. Though in other novels, it suggested it was become more like 1 or 1:30. Wolfe doesn't even get down from the plant rooms till 11. But despite the deviations from the usual Wolfe stories, this was a good episode. And it has been a fun series, even though there have been some differences between the radio episodes and the books. It's been a lot of fun to bring these to you, and we'll revisit them if we come back and find any more. Got a comment here from Brian who says, Adam, you asked people to vote at Podcast Alley last month and tell you the name of their favorite detective show. I realize this is a day late, given that it is May 1st, but I'm voting anyway. My favorite is Nero Wolfe. So much so that I am now reading Rex Stout short stories on my Android tablet. They are wonderful. Thanks again for investing so much of your time in these podcasts. They, too, are wonderful. Well, thanks so much. And I know that in preparing for this to do the Nero Wolfe shows, I've definitely become a much bigger fan of the character, and I hope to be able to make it through all of the novels and short stories, and I may even post a review or two of those that I've read through. And thanks to everybody who encouraged us to pursue this particular series. Well, next week, we'll get to hear another private detective. I know Richard Diamond has probably been the most requested series, and it's still going to be a while till we get to that, but Dick Powell fans will have Rogue's Gallery starring Dick Powell as Richard Rogue for 22 weeks, starting next week. So join us for that then. Well, before we do get started with today's program, I want to encourage you, if you've not already, to pick up a copy of my wife and I's new book, Tales of the Dim Night. We pay homage to a lot of the great Golden Age superheroes. It's a fun superhero spoof with a great family message in it. I think you will enjoy it. Tales of the Dim Night, dimnight.com. Well, let's get into today's episode of Let George Do It, Snowblind.
Personal notice, danger's my stock and trade. If the job's too tough for you to handle, you got a job for me, George Valentine. Write full details.
Standard Oil Company of California, on behalf of independent Chevron gas stations and standard stations throughout the West, invites you to Let George Do It. Snowblind, a transcribed adventure of George Valentine.
Dear Mr. Valentine, I'm writing to you about my husband, Herbert Morris, since I know he himself would never deign to ask anyone for help, particularly when it concerns a woman. But he is in danger. I can tell from his letters and the way he acts when he does. Herbert is a doctor. He can't leave his practice. And so he is alone down there in the city, just as I am alone up here in the mountains.
Es gibt kein Lärm in diesem Wald.
Oh, you startled me. Hello, Hans.
What is it?
What? Oh, es gibt keine... There are no longer bears in this wood. See, I have been studying. I have.
No, not what I say. I meant, what is it?
Oh, the letter. It's nothing. It's nothing, Hans.
Ah. It is snowing outside. Good powder.
Oh, yes, I noticed it. Supper time. I can practice my Christie in the morning, can't I? You'll help me with it, won't you? Before any of the others, Hans.
Of course, Mrs. Morris. A ski instructor is only to oblige.
Oh, Hans.
What is it? You won't tell me?
Oh, well, it's just, it's a note for supplies I need up at the cabin. Oh, Hans, wait. I'll be in a moment to dine.
Isn't andere Damen?
Yes, I know. There are other women, that's what you said, isn't it?
Yeah.
But I'll be just a moment, Hans. Ich, nein. Well,
No, stop it. It's a dead language, like the people. Why bother?
Oh, don't say that, Hans. You'll wait for me, won't you?
Whatever the lady says.
Oh, please. Won't you?
How else could I do? So, hurry to order the bacon. There is dancing to be done. Hurry!
Mr. Valentine, my husband is in danger from a woman. Her name is Dorothy Graham, and I believe she is at the Hotel Continental. I can be reached at our winter cabin several miles north of Sun Mountain Lodge. Sincerely, Stella
Miss Graham checked out half an hour ago. Took all her baggage. I'm as sorry as you are. She was nice to hand her key to. All right, Wolfe.
She left half an hour ago, and we already found out Dr. Morris left for Sun Mountain last night, but... Wait a minute. Did she have any heavy baggage? I mean, like skis, maybe?
Nope. But she asked me for a railroad schedule in the name of a good sporting goods store. That help you any? Yeah. How about it, Angel? Shall we join the Broken Legs?
Sun Mountain?
Uh-huh. In fact, if we make it fast, we might even catch the same ski special she does. Want to bet?
Miss Dorothy Graham. Miss Dorothy Graham.
Porter. That's me.
Telegram, Miss Graham. Delivered to the train at the station.
Oh, of course. Here. Thank you.
Oh, thank you, miss. Well, pardon me. May I?
Chair's empty.
Yeah. Well, I guess everybody's a little friendly, headed for a vacation and all.
I suppose so.
Yeah.
This is my first trip this year. You pretty good on sticks?
I don't ski.
Skate?
No.
Well, then what are you doing on the train?
Would you please...
Oh, look, excuse me. You got a wire. You haven't had a chance to read it. I didn't notice.
Would you please give me a match? That's all.
Oh, sure. There you are.
Thank you.
Hey, you're burning your telegram.
Yes. I like fires and ashtrays, don't you? Now, if you'll excuse me, I think I'll get some sleep.
Yeah, Brooksy burned the telegram without looking at it.
I wonder who she thought it was from.
I don't know. Particularly since it was me.
What?
Sure, that's the wire I sent her, a fake one from her hotel. Just so it'd be easy to find her here in this crowd.
Well, while you were in the club car, I took a simpler way. I asked the porter which was Dorothy Graham's compartment.
You what?
And I looked through her handbag, George. She only has a one-way ticket to Sun Mountain, a lot of sleeping tablets, and a gun.
Mrs. Morris, we came up here because you said your husband's in danger. We didn't come up here to ski.
Please, Mr. Valentine. Please, not now. But when will you talk about it? Ever since you met us at the station, you've been...
There's so little time with the good snow. It'll be storming again later on. And you do enjoy it, don't you?
Oh, yeah, sure, of course we do. But I also like to know what's going on. Why'd your husband come up here unexpectedly? Why did Dorothy Graham? Why'd she carry a gun? What's it all about?
Well, I'm sure there's nothing to worry about. The gun or about her. Not now. You said she took a room back at the lodge. Well, Herbert's miles from here. He stayed up at our cabin for the day.
Next one. Where's the next one? Now, all day it doesn't take to climb up here.
Oh, that's you, Miss Brooks. I haven't cut my wings yet. The lessons will help you.
You fall down. Come, Miss Brooks. Bend your knees this time.
Go ahead, go to it, Angel. Let's see you fall on something besides your face.
Oh, here goes nothing.
Now, that's it. Lean. Lean. Now swing your arm, your shoulder. Now swing it.
Yeah, it's all a lot of fun, isn't it, Miss
Mr.
Morris?
Valentine, I will tell you, but not in front of Hart.
It's all right, Mrs. Morris. Show her how it's done. This up all day. It's getting colder. Only the skis keep them together. Together. Swing now. That's it.
All right, Hans. Watch me, Hans.
Hey, she's not bad. Must have been practicing a lot.
Yeah. But you, Mr. Valentine, you do not need lessons.
Neither do you.
Why not, Mr. Valentine? What else is to life except mountains and snow and women?
Well, you left out a dog and a fire. Now, look, Hans. You know Mrs. Morris pretty well. You've been with us ever since we got off the train. You know her husband?
The doctor? Yeah.
Well, what's he like?
Well, American. I don't know. It's just this morning I meet him. I drive to their cabin for coffee. I brought her back to meet you, her friends. He's, he drives a new red convertible.
Is that bad?
Expensive. It is her money.
Oh, I see.
Of course, the man is a doctor.
No, I get the idea. You don't like him?
No, why should you say that? He's nothing, one way or the other.
Yeah, I understand. Ski instructors don't get so much dough,
Mr.
so...
Valentine.
Well, I think. But it hurts.
Under my arm.
I called.
Let's go inside.
Oh, ouch. I was making a turn.
Neither do I, Mrs.
What?
Yes, your husband. It was Hans, right? Worried, you mean?
It's Fulton. I did.
All right. Here, keep the towel on.
I wasn't just trying to stop you from talking.
He's outside now with Miss Brooks, so forget it. All right, let's have it, Mrs. Morris. I don't like divorce cases. But that's what this is, isn't it?
Well, I wrote you that my husband...
Oh, sure, that Herbert is in danger from a blonde, and I followed her, and she's a weirdy, all right. But you're no more worried about him or about her than the price of eggs in Sweden. The only thing that worries you is your boyfriend. The way you watch that Austrian ski boy out there is enough to...
I beg your pardon, Mr. Valentine. I love Hans very much.
Okay, I beg yours. Only let's be honest about it.
Herbert is... Well, stuffy about giving me my freedom, that's all. On a friend in the city, his nurse, when she wrote me that Herbert had brought this Graham woman to town. I've been visiting her at her hotel down there.
All you had to do was hire somebody like me and trade the doctor for a... Well, never mind. first impressions.
Oh, but when you get to know Holmes, it's just that he's been through so much in his own country. And he's sensitive and proud.
And ambitious?
Mr. Valentine, I'm sorry I misled you. But I didn't expect everyone to come galloping after us to the mountains. Oh, it's you.
Gibt kein Werden in diesem Wald.
Oh, darling, I'm much better now. I thought you were hurt.
Yeah, the bear, he is slow, huh? But the road is always bad, dangerous. And now there's more
My
snow
ankle's
outside.
only a little swollen, don't you think?
Oh, Liebchen, how shall we then dance? You should have a bandage. I will go bring it myself. A little tape.
No, never mind. Where do you keep your first aid kit?
My cabin just out there beyond the mosquito. Why?
Give me your keys. I need some fresh air. Come on, sister. What's the big idea, Blondie? You've got a rotten name, but...
No, let me go. I didn't mean to hit you. I mean, I didn't, did I? I heard the key and stepped the door. I'm sorry.
Yeah. Maybe you thought it was somebody else, huh? But you've been sitting here all keyed up, waiting for the door to open.
Yes, that was
Just like you were keyed up on the train, cried all the way up here. Only bought a one-way ticket. Well, there's only one guy you could have come up here to murder, and Hans.
Mr. Valentine! Mr. Valentine, what's happened? What's happened?
Doris?
Oh, Hans.
What are you... Where did you come... Doris?
Yeah, Buster. Stand there with your mouth open. You don't know how lucky you are to be able to open it.
Right. No, please, Mr. Valentine. It has been years. She is my wife. No, I have not known she is. Please.
You need time to think of answers.
No, please, there is a road. A spare cabin to here. Beautiful new car. Dr. Morris, like the sheriff. His car accident into the canyon is dead.
George Valentine in just a moment. Several weeks, there will probably be... What's the big trek all about no country, but how will your climate tailored? It gets the best out of your car drive. That's because Chevron Supreme is specially tailored to the West's different altitude and temperature zones. It's tailored also to the season. So try a tank full of this climate-tailored gasoline tomorrow. Right away, you'll notice how much better your car performs. Faster start, smoother pickup in traffic, tune-free power on hills. In fact, you can't buy a better gasoline for today's high-compression engines. Ask for premium quality Chevron Supreme at independent Chevron gas stations and standard stations where they say and mean we take better care of your car. Now, back to tonight's adventure of George Valentine. You're hired by a wealthy married woman who has a sentimental eye on a handsome ski instructor. A married ski instructor at that. Yes, it's a quadrangle, or rather it was, until Dr. Morris crashed to his death while driving down the dangerous road from the cabin to the lodge. So, when the sheriff asks you all to meet him at the Morris cabin, you think it best for you to do the ride up that dangerous road. And when you arrive at the cabin, you wish the sheriff would hurry up with his investigation.
Hello? Yes, we're all up here at the Morris cabin, Sheriff, but... Well, I just hoped you'd be here, too, that's all. No, I just want to know more about the accident, that's all. So does his wife. No, Sheriff, there's no reason I can tell you yet for wanting you here fast, but... Well, it's just a weather, I guess. Sure. We're okay.
Mr. Valentine.
He's still down there in the canyon where the car hit. He phoned from the ranger station.
Have they reached his body?
Yes.
Was there anything unusual about the accident?
No.
And Mr. Valentine, why do you act the way you do?
Is Hans starting a fire? That storm's getting worse.
Yes. And Miss Brooks has gone upstairs with Archie.
You don't care much that your husband died, do you?
I love him, if that's what you mean.
Why wouldn't he give you a divorce?
Well, Herbert didn't really get stubborn about it until
you met Hans.
Hans is difficult to understand, to appreciate.
I'm like, you're a woman, sure. Well, I'm not. You're a woman, sure. Well, I'm not. You're a woman, sure. Well, I'm not. So how's this for size? Your husband dug around in Hans' past until he dug up a wife, Dorothy, that Hans had deserted. Of course, Herbert didn't tell you about it. He wanted to bring her up there, let the situation explode itself. Well, it almost did. Dorothy decided to take matters into her own hands and kill the darling boy. That's what she thinks of it.
Oh, Mr. Valentine, he's told me about her. She's not normal. She's unbalanced.
Yeah, I wonder what made her that way.
It's a tragic situation. Their marriage isn't even legal.
They're married? Oh, no, not that, too.
Oh, what do you mean?
I mean, it's all just too neat. Dorothy's no real stumbling block by herself, is she? Dr. Morris, he was the only real obstacle. Well, lady, I never knew anyone to die so conveniently. By accident.
What else did the sheriff tell you?
You see, you too can't help thinking. Was it really an accident? Or was Herbert really murdered?
Well, Mr. Valentine, I was just trying to persuade your lovely assistant.
Oh, yeah, sure. Somebody dies, so it's a great time to dance. Where's Dorothy?
Upstairs, I suppose.
She's all right, George.
Long faces for the dead. Black pretense around the arm. Sentimentality, isn't it?
In this household, maybe you're right, Buster. I talked to the sheriff on the phone.
What did he say?
Quick on the draw. What's the matter? You nervous?
Well, why not? The man is on top of the world. A split second of ice, and he has slipped into the abyss. Even at the wheel of a fine convertible, a man can...
Skip it. I know the doctor was driving alone, if that's what you're trying to remind me of.
I go around in circles myself. My wife appearing from all these years. And the accident, and your unpleasant remarks.
Yeah, be sure to remind me of the word accident. But if you were driving alone on a dangerous road, and the accident would be easier if someone had tinkered with your car earlier.
George.
What is that, no? What you call a shot in the dark?
No, an unpleasant remark, that's all. Hans, it keeps bothering me how much you envy that man as convertible. You can't seem to forget it. All of the things Stella Morris's money would give to a man.
Hans, you were up here earlier this morning. You said so. Both you and Mrs. Morris would have had a chance.
No, Angel, she wouldn't have known how.
So you shoot at me. Because I am poor, huh? Because you cannot understand the simple envy of people who are persecuted.
I'm not interested in what makes you tick, Buster. Now, the reason I'm even more anxious than ever now to hear the sheriff's final report on that car is because I've been as insulting to you as I know how to be. And yet you haven't once offered to do the normal thing, to knock off my block.
Then, of course, I shall oblige.
Saved by the bell.
Stop it, please, both of you.
Dorothy, you shouldn't have come.
I'm feeling much better now, Miss Brooks.
Ready to join the party, huh?
No. No, I'd like to see my husband alone, that's all.
Whatever you wish.
Oh, no, you don't. You've already tried once.
Yes, I came up here to kill him. But I have no gun now.
That's right.
I am strange, aren't I? Hans, can you imagine me wanting to kill you?
Hallo, umsteigen.
No, it's the same me. Isn't he wonderful, Miss Brooks?
Okay, go ahead. We'll be back in a few minutes.
George.
Come on, I can't stand it. How that guy can wind women around his little
But he's
finger.
liable to try.
Liable to kiss him, sure. What'd she say upstairs? Anything?
Just what we thought. He deserted her a couple of years ago after he got into this country by being her husband. But she's so mixed up. George, it's her I'm worried about.
She's no threat to him anymore. Why would he touch her?
George, maybe he could be deported if they're married.
That middle-aged sucker up there and only follow after him. No, Angel, when the doctor died, it left nobody to interfere with Casanova's march to success.
Except us, and we might be wrong.
Come on out here. What I'm afraid of, Angel, is we won't ever know whether we're right or wrong. Ooh, oh, it's cold. Come on, stay under the eaves. The garage is out in back.
You won't find any evidence.
Except for the sheriff, it's my only chance. Before this snow covers everything up. Hey, look out now. Let me take your arm.
The ground's frozen.
At least maybe I can get that guy nervous enough to...
George, what's the matter?
Hey, what's this stuff on your jacket? On the inside of your arm here?
couldn't have rubbed against anything. Not there.
Somebody else took your arm like this. Who was it?
But I don't... Well, Dorothy did for a moment when she came downstairs just now to steady herself.
Dorothy, sure. And she wanted to talk to him alone about it. Oh, brother, am I a sucker? Come on back to the house fast.
But, George, what is it?
Smear of grease, Angel. Axle grease. And it came off a car.
Mr. Valentine.
Where is she?
Here, George, here. Dorothy.
Oh, Mr. Valentine, I was just going to call you. We were talking, yet you seemed to start to fall asleep.
Dorothy, can you hear me? It's those pills she takes. She must have taken all of them.
Yeah, she tried to kill herself and she was alone.
Mrs. Morris. Mrs. Morris.
What is it? She's not quite asleep yet, George.
Get some baking soda, will you? Whatever you do, make it fast.
I'll get it. That's it, Dorothy. Can you walk now? I'm holding
wait.
you.
Here's the keys to my car. As soon as you can, get her wrapped up in a blanket and down to the lodge as fast as you can drive. Only leave the windows open.
But the road, it's worse all the time, even with chains.
She's got a license, Buster. Only I might be a little careful, Angel.
Don't worry, George.
Oh, Mr. Valentine, it is ridiculous. We should go with them.
They can do better than we can. Besides, you're not leaving this room, not yet. Now, let's see. A glass, maybe. How did you give her those pills? In whiskey?
I don't know what you're talking about. She tried to murder me. She's upset. She tried to kill herself.
Yeah. This glass won't do it. That's number one.
Number what?
Evidence. Things you show to a jury, just in case she can't testify or doesn't know herself what happened.
Oh, Mr. Valentine. Really?
Oh, yeah, sure. I'm way out on a limb, Buster. But I'm building a ladder fast. Now, let's see. No coat, no purse. Oh, no, you don't. I'll pick that up. Yeah, here we are. Handkerchief covered with grease. Man's handkerchief. Yours?
Give me that.
I said stand still, Buster. You can't give a gun an argument. Sure. Your initials. A guy tampers with a car, he gets a little greasy. Dorothy got this down below, didn't she? In your cabin near the lodge. Wonder what else she stumbled into. I might have had this before.
What?
Identification card. You were in the Luftwaffe, huh? What's this long word? Machinist something.
Mr. Valentine, this is what you call circumstantial, is it not? Oh, there they go. In the car.
Yeah. Let's see what... Pliers. Oh, now don't get so...
No, I use those on ski binding.
Or maybe this is the type that comes out of the toolbox of a red convertible.
Oh, stop it. Mr. Valentine, you are so ready to accuse me. So ready to invent what a crazy woman's story would have been. Yes, now you are watching me now, huh? You are... Look, you see... Oh, let go of that gun. So, there, my suspicious friend. Now you are looking at a gun. Thank you, Stella.
Well, I didn't mean to. I just opened the door. They didn't need me to go with them, and I wanted to...
Now, Liebchen, forgive me. Perhaps you will join me sometime.
What?
Of course, I'm leaving. Your own sedan is still in the garage. How could I stay in a country with such a suspicious man?
Holmes, I've been listening. There isn't any real evidence against you. Nothing to prove you caused the accident.
Nothing except me. I know what police can make people say to confess, whether it's true or not. Well, I won't be caught to find out. There is no one who can catch me alive to accuse me of things I don't do.
Holmes!
Get your hands off me. If I run, it doesn't make me guilty. It makes me free, that's all. Free to get the things I want.
Well, Mrs. Morris, there goes your ski boy.
I know him, Mr. Valentine. You can't touch him. He won't be caught. Don't be angry. It's better this way.
Yeah? Well, I'll just get on the phone.
No, please, you can't.
What?
The phone. You can't. I was talking on the phone when the storm put it out of order. Miss Brooks will reach the lodge, all right. But by then, no one will be able to get back here. But Hans could get out. It would take a day for the snowplows to reach us. He could be in Mexico in a day. He could...
Hey, wait a minute. Who are you talking to on the phone?
The sheriff.
The sheriff?
A minute ago, I told you the truth. All the evidence said it was definitely an accident.
An accident?
The sheriff was just as suspicious as you were. But he says there's no question about it. Herbert just skidded on one of those corners and went over. That was all it was.
Oh, now, wait a minute.
You've been wrong all along, Mr. Valentine, about that accident. Right.
That's Hans. Come on. Well, he's dead, all right.
There was no other way out for him. He would have been caught.
I see what you mean. I remember how your husband was on his way to you, your bad ankle. He was a doctor.
He was considerate. I would have been warmer, more comfortable if he'd brought my car. The sedan.
Yeah. Which left nothing here in the garage for Hans to escape in but the car he himself fixed as a death trap. A brand new red convertible.
Talk about irony, George. Dr. Morris unexpectedly took his wife's sedan, not his convertible. He had an accident, pure and simple.
Yeah, but Hans never imagined that. He fixed up the convertible. The doc crashed in the canyon, so Hans took it for granted his plan had worked. Dorothy, any better?
Mm-hmm. No, she's been telling me a little more about Hans, his background. There were lots of women he stepped over, I guess.
Well, I won't say women are suckers.
George, he was good looking. I can see how it happened.
Maybe.
But, George, the way he skied, so gracefully, so beautiful.
Well, what do you think I've been doing all afternoon?
All I said is I could see how it happened. George, your ankle, a plaster cast. But you were just on a bunny slope. A child couldn't get hurt.
How'd this happen? I'm lucky you couldn't see that.
One of the worst night driving hazards, especially in wintry weather, is the one-eyed car. And you probably don't think highly of that car's owner. But when were the lights on your own car last checked? For your own safety, friends, make it a point to get your car lights checked at regular intervals. At standard stations and at independent Chevron gas stations, a light check is one of their many protective services. And it's a speedy service, so why not play safe and have it done tomorrow? While you're there, ask them to inspect your windshield wiper, both the arm and the blade. If the arm is faulty, they can replace it quickly, so you won't have to risk its failing when you need it most. And remember, in stormy weather, a worn wiper blade is almost as bad as none at all. They sound like small items, lights and windshield wipers, but they're very important to your personal safety. And they're part of the protective service offered to you at independent Chevron gas stations and at standard stations, where they say and mean, we take better care of your car. Tonight's adventure of George Valentine has been brought to you by Standard of California on behalf of independent Chevron gas stations and standard stations throughout the West. Robert Bailey is starred as George. Let George Do It is written by David Victor and Jackson Gillis and directed by Don Clark. Virginia Gregg appeared as Brooksy. Larry Dobkin was heard as Hans, Lorene Tuttle as Stella, Gene Bates as Dorothy, and Joe Duvall as the clerk. The music is composed and presented by Eddie Dunstetter, your announcer, John Heaston. Listen again next week, same time, same station, to Let George Do It. This is the Mutual Don Lee Broadcasting System.
Welcome back. Well, this has been so far a week of some pretty momentous episodes. The last Nero Wolfe, the first episode of Ideal in Crime, and this is actually the very last Let George Do It of the 1940s. It aired on December 26th. I have to say, as I was listening to it, it was a pretty good play. The end, I did not really buy in one way, because the ski instructor, he jumps in the car that he sabotaged, and drives off and tries to make his getaway in the car, knowing full well that he had sabotaged it. It was kind of a Whistler-like twist, in that he got hoisted with his own petard because the doctor went off the road just normally in the sedan. But I just don't buy him trying to get away in a car he knew he had booby-trapped, unless he was, like, driven by extreme guilt. Because it seemed to me that once he got in there and he saw the car, that he would realize, well, the guy didn't die through my sabotage after all, because this is the car that I sabotaged and it's just fine. So that has some plausibility. Of course, you know, they might say, well, it was snowing, but you can tell the difference between keys of different cars. I know you can now, and I imagine you could back then. So a little bit of a plot hole, but they're entitled to one of those every now and again. Well, now we turn to listener comments and feedback. Tony writes, hello, thank you so much for all the hard work you do with the site and the podcast. My fave will always be Sherlock Holmes. I'm a fairly recent subscriber and am playing catch-up. Some of the shows, like Box 13 or Pat Novak, which I also love, are very new to me. One thing I noticed about the Abbotts is that Jean Abbott really irritates me, and I finally figured out why. She is the most insecure woman I have ever seen. Not that I've really seen her, but you know what I mean. She is so jealous of any female that comes in contact with Pat. He is not actively flirting with him, but I hate that she resorts to childish jealousy when it's so obvious that Pat is insanely in love with her. Well, the Abbotts definitely were a mystery couple with some issues. We've kind of alluded to some of them before. She says the other annoying female is Brooksy from Let George Do It, but at least she is more tolerable. It's always the always dropping wedding hints that gets to me. Maybe I'm too sensitive from all the silly romantic Hollywood comedies that Hollywood puts out with so many ridiculous female cliches. Okay, I'll get off my soapbox. Thanks again for all the great work you do. Well, in defense of Brooksy, at this point, she's been working for George for about 3.5 years. So I guess we'll give her a license to hint. It is kind of a cute little back and forth chase that we know the writers will never let get to a point of actual marriage. Marriage just would change a lot of the dynamics of the series. And there was a thought that when you have a single hero and he gets married, that's the end of his story. A lot of shows did have, or I would say 4 shows at least had married detectives, but they were successful because the detective was married when the show started. Well, we got another email here from Mike who said, I've downloaded our podcast on my iTunes and thoroughly enjoy your show while taking long walks with my dog. Old-time detective radio has always been an interest of mine, and I find it interesting how many of the actors on these programs I'm familiar with from 1940s and 50s movies, as well as the early years of television. Yeah, definitely, there were a few actors that got left behind on radio when that ended, but a lot of actors, Harry Bartell, Virginia Gregg, Herb Ellis, even these character actors made the leap to television in some form. In a lot of ways, it wasn't as fun or as relaxed as radio, but they were still keeping work. And of course, I've also, through listening to this, become very appreciative of the talents of Edmund O'Brien, for example. And the first time I actually saw Edmund O'Brien, he was playing a newspaper editor in a 1960s Wonderful World of Disney movie. I believe it was Gallagher. And he did well enough as a crusty newspaper editor. But I really have been surprised as I've encountered some of his radio performances, just how strong of an actor he was. Well, anyway, Mike finishes saying, I've also purchased your blog on my Kindle and truly enjoy it. Keep up the good work. Well, thanks so much, Mike, and he's from Des Moines, Iowa. Then a couple brief comments from Podcast Alley. Your efforts are most enjoyed. Keep up the great work. And thanks for a great show, Adam. I'm really looking forward to Rogues Gallery, which is coming now next Tuesday. And yay for Adam and great detectives. Well, thanks so much for all the kind comments. We'll be back tomorrow with Sherlock Holmes. Well, before we do get started, I wanted to let you know about Netflix. Netflix is a great solution for a growing number of people who want to enjoy the television they want to watch, decide what it is they'd like to see, and does save money compared to other sources. Netflix has a great selection both in its Instant Watch and DVD catalogs. You can try Netflix out for free. Go to netflix.greatdetectives.net, or if you're in Canada, go to netflixca.greatdetectives.net. Well, we're going to get into today's episode of Sherlock Holmes, The Creeping Man.
Kreml Hair Tonic and Kreml Shampoo present the new adventures of Sherlock Holmes, starring Nigel Bruce as Dr. Watson and Tom Conway as Sherlock Holmes. Here we are once more in Dr. Watson's firelit study. The wind is howling outside, but inside the heavy red curtains have been drawn across the windows, and the only sound we can hear is the cheerful crackling of the logs in the fireplace. Good evening, Dr. Watson.
Good evening, Mr. Bell.
You don't know how lucky you are that you don't have to go out on a night like this.
Yes, it's one of the advantages of having retired from active medical practice. You know the old adage, man works from sun to sun, but woman's work's never done. It's a base libel as far as doctors are concerned. You never know when Mr. Smith is going to acquire a black eye, or Mrs. McTavish may decide to present her an addition to the clan.
Never a dull moment, eh, Dr. Watson?
Oh, dear me, no. That's one thing I've never complained of. If it wasn't a patient who disturbed what little routine I had, it was Sherlock Holmes. I remember one bitter February evening. It was the second winter after my marriage. I just settled down to my after-dinner pipe when the doorbell rang. It was a note from Holmes. It said, "Come at once if convenient. If inconvenient, come all the same."
And you went, of course.
Now, Mr. Bell, you'll hear all about that in good time, but haven't you something to tell our listeners?
Yes, Dr. Watson, I have. Men, attractive, well-groomed hair does a great deal to give a man self-assurance, to say nothing of helping his appearance. And I'm sure you'll be interested in hearing more about this modern trend in hair grooming, which has become such a nationwide favorite among America's most successful men. It's called Kreml Hair Tonic. This highly specialized hair tonic contains a combination of hair grooming ingredients which has never been duplicated in any other hair tonic. Yes, that's exactly why Kreml gives a man's hair such a natural, well-groomed look and keeps it in place longer. Keeps every hair in perfect order from morning till night. Yet Kreml never gives hair that greasy, patent leather look. Kreml keeps hair looking mighty handsome with a rich, healthy-looking luster. Yet it always feels and looks clean on your hair and scalp. No other hair tonic keeps hair more handsomely groomed, yet it never looks greasy. So men, for better groomed hair, change to Kreml. Kreml. Kreml Hair Tonic. Now, Dr. Watson, when you received the mysterious message from Sherlock Holmes, you at once went round to Baker Street, I suppose.
Yes, curiosity has always been my Achilles' heel. Well, when I arrived at Baker Street, I found Holmes huddled in his armchair, his knees drawn up and his pipe in his mouth. He was sunk in a profound reverie, and I'd been in the room several moments before he became aware of my existence.
Oh, so there you are, Watson, there you are.
Obviously. I've been here for 7 minutes, as a matter of fact.
Unimportant, completely unimportant, and uninteresting. Watson, have you ever speculated on the importance of the knowledge of dogs in detective work?
Dogs? Well, naturally. Bloodhounds, sleuth hounds...
No, I'm not interested in that phase of the subject. It's too obvious. There is another side, far more subtle.
I suppose there is, but I'm dashed to I know...
You recollect in the case you so sensationally wrote up as The Adventure of the Copper Beeches?
Yes, but the case was sensational. In that instance, it wasn't the dog. It was the fact that the master of the house was willing to pay a sizable sum to...
Don't prattle, Watson, don't prattle.
Prattle?
I was about to point a moral. In the case of the Copper Beeches, I was able, by noting the actions of a rather vicious child, to draw some startling deductions as to the criminal instincts of its father, who was considered a thoroughly respectable citizen.
Oh, of course, yes, I remember, but what's that got to do with...
My line of thought about dogs is analogous. Whoever saw a frisky dog in a gloomy family, or a sad dog in a happy one? Snarling people have snarling dogs. Dangerous people have dangerous dogs.
Surely, Holmes, you didn't rout me out on a night like this to discuss the temperaments of dogs?
Not in general, no. What interests me is why Professor Presbury's faithful wolfhound Roy endeavors to bite him.
You mean Professor Presbury, the famous Camford's physiologist?
Quite. The dog, until recently a most devoted animal, has attacked his master twice.
Huh?
What do you make of it?
The dog is ill.
Possibly. But he attacks no one else. Nor does he molest his master save on very special occasions. Curious, Watson, very curious. Ah, that must be Mr. Bennett, Professor Presbyter's assistant. He is before his time. His appointment was 8:30. Come in. Ah, good evening, Mr. Bennett.
Good evening.
This is my friend and colleague, Dr. Watson. I couldn't consider undertaking a case or solving an enigma without his invaluable aid.
Oh, Holmes, brother, pay no attention to Mr. Bennett. He's pulling my leg again.
Delighted to meet you, sir. I hope you'll forgive me arriving so early, Mr. Holmes, but Edith is so worried about her father, and naturally
Quite so. Edith, my dear Watson, is Professor Presbyter's daughter, to whom Mr. Bennett is engaged to be married. Am I right?
Yes, Mr. Holmes, I have that honor.
Oh, congratulations, young man, congratulations. Ideal state matrimony.
Watson, stop chattering.
Oh, I was only going to say that I've only been married.
Now then, Mr. Bennett, I believe you gave me the salient points of the case in your letter, but I've not had the opportunity to relate them to Dr. Watson. So if you will be good enough to go over the matter again...
Certainly, Mr. Holmes. The professor, as you may know, Dr. Watson, is a man of splendid reputation.
Yes, indeed he is.
A trifle positive, I might even say combative, but there has never been a breath of scandal, at least until a month ago.
Dear me, don't tell me that old Presbyter has started to sow his wild oats at his age. I always considered him the soul of respectability.
Well, you see, early last fall he became attached to the daughter of Professor Morphy. It was not the reasoned courting of an elderly man, but rather the passionate frenzy of youth.
In short, his family considered the infatuation rather excessive?
Exactly. And so I gathered did the young lady, although her father, Professor Morphy, favored the match.
Yes. Presbyter is fairly well-to-do, I understand.
Yes. About a month ago, Professor Presbyter did something he's never done before. He left home without telling anyone he was going. A fortnight later, he returned rather travel-worn.
Oh, where'd he been?
Well, he refused to say. By chance, however, I received a letter from a friend of mine in Prague, saying he'd seen the professor at a distance.
And now comes the remarkable part of the story.
Oh?
Yes, Dr. Watson. From that time on, a curious change came over the professor. Those around him had the inexplicable feeling that he was under some influence that darkened his better nature.
You don't think that he was hypnotized, possibly, or mentally unbalanced in some way?
No, on the contrary. His lectures were more brilliant than ever. His mind was singularly alert. But there was something new about him, something sinister. His daughter tried again and again to penetrate the mask he had put on, but in vain.
Extraordinary.
He behaved to her almost as though she were a stranger. In fact, all of his friends and co-workers noticed a rather singular change of personality.
And the incident of the letters, Mr. Bennett. Don't forget that.
I was just coming to that. You see, Dr. Watson, the professor has never had any secrets from me. I handled every paper which came in to him and opened all his letters.
Yes, of course.
Shortly after his return, all of this was changed. Certain letters began to arrive, marked with an X under the stamp. These I was in no account to touch.
What was the handwriting like?
Decidedly illiterate. The envelopes had the EC mark.
East Central, eh? Not exactly the portion of London one would expect the professor to be in touch with.
The letters were curious enough, but not more curious than the little wooden box.
Wooden box?
Yes. One of those quaint carved things one associates with a visit to Germany. I discovered it one morning in the drawer of Professor Presbyter's desk. He had sent me into his study in search of a cannula.
I put it on my desk, Bennett, in front of the inkwell.
It's not here, Professor Presbyter. I'll try the drawers. It's usually in the upper right. No, not here. Perhaps the left one. No. I say, Professor, what a curious box. I've never seen that in here before.
What box?
This one with the carving. You must have got it on your trip to Germany.
What trip to Germany? Who said I was in Germany?
Professor Presbyter, I didn't mean to...
You sniveling little cad, you
Yes,
contemptible
but,
snooper.
What
do you mean by poking about among my things? Put that box down.
Let me explain.
Put that box down, I say. Go. Now get out of here. Get out before I break every bone in your body.
Jolly chap, the professor. Sounds as if he were heading for an apoplectic fit.
Do you remember the date of that outburst, Mr. Bennett?
It was December the 2nd.
It was on that very day that Roy the Wolfhound made his first attack on the professor.
Attack? Do you mean that the dog actually bit him?
Well, he certainly tried to.
When was the next attack?
December the 11th, and again on December the 20th. After that, we had to banish Roy to the stables.
Singular, most singular. Those dates were new to me.
There have been some even stranger developments since I wrote you, Mr. Holmes.
Yes?
What I speak of occurred the night before last. It was really a terrifying experience.
Yes, go on.
I live with Professor Presbury, as you know, Mr. Holmes. I'd retired rather early and was correcting the papers of a lecture I was to deliver in the morning. At 11:30, all was quiet, and I blew out my lamp and went to sleep. A little after midnight, I was awakened by a curious shuffling and muttering in the corridor. It was followed by a series of dull knocks on what I took to be Edith's door. I heard her open the door. There was a gasp, and then she uttered a terrible scream. It's all right, darling. I'm coming. What's the matter? Don't look so terrified.
Oh, Edward. Edward, it was horrible. Like a nightmare.
What was? Oh, darling, don't tremble so. I'm here now. Tell me what frightened you.
I thought I heard someone knocking at my door.
I heard it, too.
I got up and opened the door, and there it was, leering up at me.
It? What do you mean? Was it a man?
I don't know. I only know it was something dark and crouching. I screamed and it hurried down the hall, not quite on its hands and knees, with its face sunk between its shoulders.
How awful. You lock yourself in and I'll have a look.
No, don't leave.
But, darling, I shh.
Do you hear anything?
No. Nothing that...
There it is again. In the ivy outside the window. As though someone were climbing up the wall.
But that's impossible. The window's a good 20 feet from the ground. Nobody would dare.
Look. On the windowsill. A hand. It's drawing itself up.
Here comes the head. Good heavens, what a horrible face. The eyes that leer.
Oh, Edward! Edward! It's Father!
Well, Watson, what do you make of that? The professor crawling about in this curious fashion.
Lumbago, probably. I've known it to double a man up.
Oh, rubbish, Watson. Did you ever hear of a man with lumbago scaling a 20-foot wall?
Well, now that you mention it, no.
Mr. Bennett, how did Professor Presbury explain his actions the next morning?
He seemed to have no recollection of them. No recollection of them at all.
When did you say this happened, Mr. Bennett?
The night before last.
The 4th of February, huh? That rather complicates matters. And last night, did anything further happen?
The only unusual thing I heard was Roy, barking furiously a little after midnight. Poor fellow, he's been chained down to the stable. I must confess, if anything else happened, neither Edith nor I would have known it. You see, we both had a feeling of impending danger and slept with our doors locked and the shutters barricaded.
Very sensible procedure. I would suggest that you get Miss Presbury out of the house for a few days. Send her away until we can clear this matter up.
I've already persuaded her to pay a visit to her aunt in Cambridge.
Splendid. Now, as to the dates of these seizures, you will say the first was December the 2nd, the next December the 11th, and the third...
Here's a list of the dates. When I first observed abnormality in the professor's behavior, I felt it my duty to obtain all possible data about the case.
Excellent. Let me see. Yes, as I thought, the intervals are regular. Putting 2 and 2 together, let us say that every 9 days the professor takes some strong drug, which has a passing but highly poisonous effect. He learned to take this drug while in Prague, and is now supplied by an intermediary who resides in the East Central District of London.
Yes, but the dog and the creeping man in the passage. Holmes, the thing's too fantastic to be explained by simple addiction to drugs.
It's not simple, not in the least. But patience, Watson, patience. We've at least made a beginning. Our next step is to obtain an interview with the professor himself. What is the best time to catch him in, Mr. Bennett? When would he be free to see us?
About 11 in the morning, Mr. Holmes.
Good. You may expect us at that time tomorrow.
In just a moment, we'll keep our appointment with the professor. But first, men, Remember, if you want your hair to look healthy and handsome, one of the first requisites is a hygienic scalp. And when you buy a hair tonic, be smart. Enjoy the extra advantages of a highly specialized hair tonic like Kreml. Kreml contains a combination of hair grooming ingredients which is found in no other hair tonic. This is why it keeps unruly hair neatly in place longer, with a rich, healthy-looking luster. Yet Kreml never gives hair that old-fashioned, greasy, patent leather look. It never leaves hair feeling sticky or dirty. But men, Kreml does lots more than keep hair looking handsome. Kreml is simply great to lubricate a dry scalp. At the same time, it removes itchy, loose dandruff. A quick massage with Kreml helps stimulate the cutaneous circulation of the scalp. Notice how alive your scalp feels, how it tingles. And if your hair is so dry it breaks off and falls, start using Kreml at once. Because Kreml actually helps condition the hair, in that it leaves it feeling softer, more pliable, makes it look as if it had some body to it. Buy a bottle of Kreml at any drug counter. Ask for an application at your barber shop. Use Kreml daily for better groomed hair, a more hygienic scalp. Kreml, Kreml Hair Tonic. Dr. Watson, what happened next in the strange case of Professor Presbury?
Well, early the next morning found us near the town of Camford, approaching a large, rather gloomy house.
This must be the house, Watson. Notice the ivy vines reaching up to the bedroom windows. See? Some of the leaves have been torn away. The vines look decidedly the worse for wear.
But surely no man could possibly climb up that way.
No normal man, Watson. No normal man. But look, I fancy that is the professor peering at us from behind the curtains in that second window. Doesn't seem to be too well pleased at our presence.
Fierce-looking chap. Tremendously vigorous for his age. I say, Holmes, do you think we ought?
Ought what?
Well, I mean, what excuse are you going to give for our call?
Assuming that Professor Presbury's memory is a trifle defective during his bad spells, how is he to know that he didn't send for us himself?
Well, isn't that rather skating on thin ice?
Possibly, my dear Watson, possibly.
I must say, I don't relish this interview at all.
Shh! Someone's coming. It's Presbury himself. For heaven's sake, Watson, pull yourself together. You look as though you'd been caught stealing sheep. Good morning. Professor Presbury, I believe?
Yes.
I'm Holmes, Sherlock Holmes, the detective.
Oh, yes, I believe I've heard of you. Won't you come in?
This is my friend, Dr. Watson.
How do you do? Oh, all right.
Come this way, gentlemen. Into my study.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. What a charming room. Delightful, eh, Holmes?
Pray sit down, gentlemen. Now, what can I do for you?
Why, that was the question I was about to put to you.
To me, sir?
Yes. Apropos of the communication you sent me.
A letter? I sent you a letter?
No, not exactly a letter.
A telegram, then? Have you got it with you?
No, I can't say I have.
No, I dare say not. Because I sent you no telegram.
Impossible. Why, then, someone's been playing a practical joke on us both.
That statement, Mr. Holmes, is highly questioned.
Really, Professor Presbury, I can only apologize for this needless intrusion and hope that you will forgive me.
But that is hardly enough, Mr. Holmes. What kind of fool do you take me for?
Why,
You know I didn't send for you. You can't get out of this so easily.
I say, steady, sir,
I'll
steady.
show you, you scoundrel.
Put down that
I'll show
paperweight,
you.
Professor.
I'll show
Consider your position. You can't afford a scandal. After all, I'm rather well known. You cannot possibly afford to treat me with such discourtesy.
I should think not.
Come on, Watson. The interview's closed. Good day, Professor.
Phew. What a narrow escape. The professor was certainly in a dangerous mood.
Yes, our learned friend's nerves are somewhat out of order. Highly inflammable temper.
Maniacal, I should say. And yet his mind seemed perfectly clear.
Too clear. That was my miscalculation. His memory is quite reliable, unfortunately. Strange. Very strange.
I must say, Holmes, I'm a bit disappointed in you. All that trouble for nothing.
Not quite for nothing. We have seen the gentleman and have gained a personal contact. We have also discovered the address of the intermediary in London.
Have we? Well, how in thunder...
The professor wrote to him this morning. I deciphered the name from the blotting pad on the professor's desk.
I say.
The gentleman's name is Dorak, and he lives in the Commercial Road. And now, Watson, I'm a busy man. We will drop this case until next Tuesday evening.
Tuesday? But why Tuesday?
On that date, if my calculations are correct, the professor should have another of his curious spells. We must be on hand to notice the developments and to prevent a catastrophe.
Sir Holmes, this isn't my idea of the way to spend a pleasant evening. Look at those clouds cutting across the moon.
Yes. I told you to bring your greatcoat. I suspected it might be a trifle drafty.
Drafty? My legs are quite numb from crouching behind this gooseberry bush. Why did you have to pick this particular night?
If the cycle of 9 days holds good, we shall have the professor at his worst tonight. Moreover, I ascertained that he received a packet from the man Dorak this morning. Yes, we shall see. We shall see.
Look. Someone has lit a light in the corner bedroom.
That must be the professor. So I was right in my calculations. Things are beginning to happen. I warned Bennett not to try to interfere with him, but to follow him at a safe distance.
Safe? You don't think that he's as dangerous as that, do you?
I don't think so. I know it.
What?
Have you your revolver handy?
Yes, but you don't think I should be obliged to use it? Huh?
Oh, control your nerves, Watson. I can hear your teeth chattering.
It's not nerves. It's a cold.
The professor's symptoms are particularly interesting. Apart from these fits, he has more energy and vitality than ever. And then his knuckles. Did you notice his knuckles?
No, I can't say that I did.
Thick and horny. Quite unusual for a man. Very curious knuckles that can only be explained by the mode of progression observed in... Knuckles. But of course. And the dog. And the ivy. Why didn't I think of that before?
Holmes. Look. He's opened the side door. There he is. Standing in the doorway, leaning forward with his arms dangling.
Of course.
Now he's coming down the drive. Wait, he's not walking, he's crouching, running and skipping along on his hands and feet. Holmes, it's uncanny. It's almost as if he were possessed by some strange, unnatural force.
There he goes, round the corner of the house. Quick, Watson, we must follow him.
Here comes Bennett.
Oh, Mr. Holmes, have you seen him?
Yes, he went this way. Come along.
He's worse than usual tonight. I could hear him through my door, chattering and jabbering to himself.
There he is. Crouching at the foot of the ivy.
Now he's climbing. Actually springing from vine to vine. Dressing gown flapping in the wind.
How horrible. He looks like some huge bat glued against the side of the house. It's uncanny.
Now he's swinging himself over to that tree. He's coming down again. He's heading for the stables.
Come along. We mustn't lose sight of him. We can't let him get away from us.
The dog has caught sight of him.
Oh, you'll kill him if you can get at him.
No, the professor's staying out of reach. Look at him crouched on the ground like that.
He's teasing the dog. He's throwing stones at it. Oh, this isn't human.
Quite, Watson, quite. Professor Presbury isn't human.
Great heavens, Holmes, what do you mean?
Look out. Roy's leash is broken. He's after the professor. He'll kill him.
Come on.
He's got him by the throat.
Drag them apart. Come on, drag them apart.
Down, I say. I've got him by the collar.
Watson, help me carry the professor into the house. His throat is badly mangled. Come in, Watson, come in. I've been looking over the professor's laboratory while you were treating his injuries. How's he coming along?
As well as can be expected. He'll pull through, I fancy. The wound was dangerously near the carotid artery. The hemorrhage was rather serious, but, I say, what's that you got in your hand?
The professor's little German box. Curious, isn't it?
Yes, but it's open. You've broken the lock. Really, Holmes, do you think that you ought to go...
Probably not. But not being deterred by your scruples, I've gone ahead. The contents are quite enlightening, if your conscience will permit you to look.
2 files, one empty and one nearly full. And a letter with a cross under the stamp.
Yes, that's from our Mr. Dorak, the London intermediary. It contains another note that completely solves the mystery. Here it is. It's signed H. Lowenstein.
H. Lowenstein? But I say, that's the Lowenstein.
Obviously, Watson, obviously.
I mean, it's Dr. Lowenstein, the famous Prague physician, who claims to have discovered a serum that will rejuvenate people. It's been tabooed, of course, by the medical profession because he refuses to reveal its source.
And for a good reason. Here, read the letter.
Let's have a look. Honored colleague, since your visit, I have thought much of your case. I beg you report fully to me on the results of my treatments. It is possible that the serum of anthropoid would have been better. I have, as I have explained, used black-faced langur because a specimen was accessible. The langur is, of course, a crawler and a climber, while anthropoid walks erect and is in every way nearer to man. But I say, Holmes, this is beastly. The langur is an ape.
Quite. It is found on the slopes of the Himalayas, and is the biggest and most human of the climbing monkeys.
Then that serum explains the professor's recent peculiarities. He used it in an attempt to regain his youth.
Yes, giving himself a dose at 9-day intervals, with the curious results we've witnessed. It's dangerous to trick nature, Watson. When man tries to rise above it, he is liable to fall below it. Even the highest type of man may revert to the animal if he leaves the straight road of destiny.
What a curious story, Dr. Watson. But did Holmes manage to stop the treatment?
Indeed. He wrote to Dr. Lowenstein and told him that he would be held criminally responsible if he continued to circulate his poisons. And that was the end of that.
Why do you suppose the dog noticed the change in his master before anyone else did?
His sense of smell told him. It was the monkey and not the professor whom Roy attacked, just as it was the monkey who teased the dog.
That's fantastic. I didn't know such things were possible, Dr. Watson.
Oh, dear me, yes. Both in detection and in medicine, things are apt to happen that it is difficult for the lay mind to believe.
And between you and Mr. Holmes, you covered both fields. Yes, 221 Baker Street must have been an exciting place to reside when you both lived there.
Yes, Mr. Bell, as you remarked a few minutes ago, we never had a dull moment.
Dr. Watson will be back in just a moment to tell you about next week's story. Here's some sensational information for our lady listeners. I'm sure we all know or have heard how divinely beautiful Powers models are. But did you know these famous beauties make up to $35,000 a year?
Which shows they have brains as well as beauty. But seriously, Joe, what impresses me most is that Powers models can afford to spend a fortune on their hair. Yet when they wash it, they rely on inexpensive Kreml shampoo.
Which proves how wonderful Kreml shampoo really is. Powers models were among the first to discover that no other shampoo leaves hair more shining bright with natural gloss and luster.
But under no circumstances does Kreml shampoo ever dry the hair.
Kreml shampoo is not a drying detergent. Kreml shampoo is entirely different.
And you know, after a Kreml shampoo, the hair actually radiates natural, brilliant highlights. And Kreml shampoo has a built-in oil base, which helps hair from becoming dry or brittle. It rinses out so easily and positively never leaves any dull, soapy film.
So, ladies, always wash your hair with Kreml shampoo. It leaves hair a vision of shining, sparkling beauty, yet in no way hurts its texture. Kreml, Kreml shampoo. Now, Dr. Watson, what about next week?
Well, now, let me see. Next week. Next week, I think I'll tell you a story about international intrigue in Paris and how, in a vile apache den, I met a beautiful, glamorous spy and almost...
Almost what, Dr. Watson?
Well, now, Mr. Bell, you'll have to wait next week to find out. I call this story The Adventure of the Scarlet Worm.
Tonight's Sherlock Holmes adventure was adapted from Sir Arthur Conan Doyle's story, The Creeping Man. Nigel Bruce appeared by permission of California Pictures. Tom Conway through the courtesy of Eagle Lion Pictures. The Sherlock Holmes series is produced by Tom McKnight with original music composed and conducted by Alex Steinert. This is Joseph Bell speaking for Kreml Hair Tonic and Kreml Shampoo and inviting you to be with us next week at this same time when Dr. Watson will tell us about the adventure of the Scarlet Worm. There are 80,000 patients in our veterans' hospitals. Your Red Cross contribution helps place the volunteer efforts of the community at their service. This is just one part of the Red Cross story. Give generously to the Red Cross. This is ABC, the American Broadcasting Company.
Welcome back. This episode is also known as The Strange Case of Professor Presby, and this definitely turned a little bit towards science fiction. But that shouldn't surprise us too much, given that a lot of the rest of the stuff that Doyle wrote outside of Sherlock Holmes would probably fall neatly into that category. And critics remain somewhat divided on it, whether it is a brilliant look into the soul or it is sci-fi drivel. Well, I'll let the listeners make up their mind on that one. It was an interesting change of pace. If every episode were like this, I don't know if I'd like it, but it's okay to mix it up every now and again. Well, we turn now to listener comments. Tim in Texas says, longtime listener with much thanks for your podcast. I write in defense of Sherlock Holmes, who seems to be getting the short straw in your recent survey. To me, Holmes is by far the best. Well-plotted, great actors, and intellectually challenging. Hair cream, of course, has nothing on Petri wine, although one can certainly appreciate hearing from Powers models. But the change from Rathbone to the new guy was seamless. Love it. Thanks, Tim. There is one way in which Kreml could be superior to Petri wine. That's if you need that polished, professional look that tells you, wait a second, I'm starting to do a commercial. I don't even think I can even charge them for it even. Well, I digress. Thanks so much for the comment, Tim. Definitely appreciate Sherlock Holmes. Got a comment from Tom who says, just thought it was about time to let you know how much I enjoy your podcast. I've been a listener for a year, and I now have my wife listening. Really enjoy your commentary. Old-time radio was before my time, but I now know why they refer to it as the theater of the mind. An apt comment after today's episode. I really thought that they did a good job with narration, helping our imagination along, as there was no way that sound effects could convey what we were hearing in the episode. So they did a good job staging it and still not seeming way over the top. So finally, a couple more comments, these from Podcast Alley. I love this podcast, I love the stories, and Adam's enthusiasm and knowledge of the podcast. I love the quality of the stories as well, and I think it's a real treat when I hear the ones with people talking in the background goofing off. I think it makes the story much more real. Yeah, the rehearsal recordings are, they're interesting. I've heard that some sets, like Gunsmoke, were a little more raucous than the others from some rehearsals, but I particularly on that last Johnny Dollar rehearsal we had a couple weeks back, where he blew that line, that really was that was classic, and I was glad to be able to bring that to you. And then so glad I found this podcast on iTunes. Enjoy the commentary at the end of each episode too. Thanks for all your hard work. And I can't get through the day without a Sherlock Holmes, Nero, Wolfe, or Johnny Dollar episode. Well, thank you so much for all your comments. They're much appreciated. For those of you who have the app or our premium site, we have our second app extra up. This one is an episode of The Family Theater starring Tom Conway, who is the star of Sherlock Holmes at this point. So that's available to you. But that'll do it for now. We will be back tomorrow with yours truly, Johnny Dollar. Well, before we do get started with today's episode of yours truly, Johnny Dollar, I want to encourage you, as you make your travel plans, be sure to check out JohnnyDollarAir.com first. JohnnyDollarAir.com is powered by Priceline, which means you can save money by naming your own price or also choose some great published fares as well. Plus, your purchases go to help support the great detectives of old-time radio. So when you're making your travel plans, search JohnnyDollarAir.com first. Well, let's get into today's episode of yours truly, Johnny Dollar, the Arthur Boldrick matter.
From Hollywood, it's time now for Edmund O'Brien as
Johnny Dollar.
Hello, Mr. Dollar. This is Dr. Carr.
Yes?
Sergeant Wright had to go back to his office and asked if I would call you.
Oh, I get it now. The Boldrick shooting. Sorry, I understood Dr. Stone was on the case.
We've both been attending Boldrick.
What's his condition now, Doctor?
He's improved some, but he'll be lucky to live. We gave him 3 blood transfusions this afternoon, and this evening he regained consciousness.
Was Sergeant Wright there at that time?
Yes.
What did Boldrick say? Did he say who shot him?
No, he wouldn't talk about it. Said he didn't remember, but he was lucid when he arrived.
Oh. When do you think I can see him?
Well, that's why I called, Mr. Dollar. You can see him this evening. Sergeant Wright hopes that since you aren't a police officer, perhaps Boldrick will talk to you.
Well, I can try. I'll be there in about 45 minutes.
Edmund O'Brien in a transcribed adventure of the man with the action-packed expense account, America's fabulous freelance insurance investigator.
Yours truly, Johnny Dollar. Expense account submitted by Special Investigator Johnny Dollar to Home Office, Corinthian All Risk Insurance Company, Hartford, Connecticut. The following is an accounting of expenditures during my investigation of the Arthur Boldrick matter. Expense account item 1, $2.30 cab fare from my apartment to the emergency hospital.
I wouldn't stay with him too long, Dollar.
All right,
Just
Doctor.
a few minutes. You'll be able to tell when he tires. This is the room. Well, Boldrick, how are you feeling now?
I don't know.
You're coming along fine. This is Mr. Dollar. He represents your insurance company.
Hello, Boldrick. Sorry about what happened.
Yeah.
Mr. Dollar wants to ask you a few questions. I've told him not to stay too long, but if you feel tired, you can tell him to leave. I'll drop by and see you later.
You think I'm going to die? Is that why you're here?
No, of course not. Doctor told me you were out of danger. I've just got some routine questions to ask you. Say it was a man that shot you?
Yeah. Somebody I never saw before, that I can remember. But I don't know what happened.
You remember where you were when you were shot?
It was in the backyard near the garage. I was right by the garage door, and this guy come around from the alley, and...
What did he say to you?
He was after the car keys. I had them in my hand. He made a grab for me. He said, give me those keys or something like that. And I give him a push, and that's when he shot me. After then, I didn't even know he had a gun.
You didn't see it when he asked for the keys?
No, if I'd have saw it, he could have had the keys. I don't fight no man with a gun.
What did he look like?
Oh, that's one of the things I don't remember too good. It happened so fast. He was wearing like overalls or something.
What color?
Oh, blue. Seems like only faded. Could have been shirt and pants, too. It was awful fast. There he was, and then it happened.
What else about him?
That's about all. I think he was sort of dark, but I don't think I'd even know him for sure if I saw him again. Maybe I would.
Maybe you'll remember more if you try.
I will. I figure this guy, whoever he was in trouble or something, and he just needed a car in a hurry.
But he didn't take the keys.
Well, I figured he lost his nerve. Wilma come running out when she heard the noise. Will Wheeler from next door. This guy was gone when they got to me.
Well, I won't bother you any longer, Boldrick. You'll help find this man if you'll think about it as much as you can and try to remember what he looked like.
Oh, don't worry, I will. Hey, mister, do you think they'll let my wife come to see me tonight? I'd sure like to see her.
I don't know. But I'll ask Dr. Karff on the way out. I'll see you later, Boldrick. I made my report to the sergeant, and the search was started for a dark man dressed in a faded blue work clothes and possibly armed with a .25 caliber pistol or revolver. It was only 7 o'clock, barely dusk, so I cabbed out to the Boldrick address. It was a single-story, run-down house in a neighborhood we Hartfordians choose to call an older part of town rather than a slum. His wife was a work-worn woman who looked older than her 34 years. She led me into the backyard and showed me the garage that faced on an alley and the spot still stained where her husband had lain.
It was here.
Nobody was in sight when you got out here?
I didn't see nobody. Neither did Will Wheeler.
Your husband mentioned him. He lives next door?
Yeah, that house.
And this man must have run down the alley. Does it open onto a street at both ends of the block?
Yeah. It runs clear down to Lawrence and up to about Cedar the other way.
I should think that most of the people in the neighborhood would be home at that time. The time he was shot. Wouldn't you?
I should think so, yeah.
And the police will probably find somebody who saw this man running down the alley.
Think somebody saw him. But most people...
Everything all right?
Yeah, Will. It's all right.
Somebody's bothering you and you don't feel like it, just tell me.
It's all right, Will. He's from the insurance.
My name is Dollar. You must be Mr. Wheeler.
That's right. I don't think nobody ought to be bothering Velma in the middle of all this trouble.
I wanted to meet her and ask a few questions. That's all. I'm through.
All right, then go on in the house, Velma. Try and get some rest.
If it's all right, then.
Sure, Mrs. Boldrick. Thanks very much.
All right. I guess I couldn't help very much.
This has got in pretty bad shape, finding art like that. And then they won't let her go and see him. How is he, do you know?
Pretty bad. I saw him a little while ago.
Was he making sense?
Seemed to be.
Before the ambulance picked him up, he was kind of off. All he could say was some guy shot him, that he didn't know. Something about the car keys.
But he told me, too.
Yeah, this is a rotten neighborhood. It's full of rotten people. He isn't going to die, is he?
They don't know.
You didn't tell Velma that, did you?
No, but I think somebody should before she reads it in the papers. One of the dangers is a wound he got in the last war.
Yeah, in the lung.
2 slugs he took this afternoon may take care of the other one.
Oh. I didn't think it was as bad as that. I guess I'd better tell her. I've been a friend of Art's for a long time. Well, I'll see you later, Mr. Dollar.
As I left the neighborhood, I noticed 2 police cars, so I knew Sergeant Wright's men were at work. I was in his office a little later when 2 of the men brought a witness in.
This is Mr. Dollar, Mrs. Cole.
How do you do?
Mrs. Cole?
It was nice of you to come in.
I thought it was my duty. The other policeman wanted to know if I was in my backyard near the alley when there was that shooting, and I was.
How far from the Boldrick house do you live, Mrs. Cole?
Well, there's 2 houses between theirs and where I live. Those policemen told me they were looking for somebody who saw a man running down the alley. I've got a garden out back, and that's where I was when I heard the shots. I didn't see no man running, but I saw a car come from that way.
Which way do you live from the Boldricks, Mrs. Cole?
Down from them. South, that is.
And did you recognize this car?
No, I didn't. I didn't see the man in it either, but it came from that way.
Did you see anybody else in the alley at the time?
No. At first, after I saw the car, I thought it was backfired. But then when I heard about the trouble, I remembered the car.
Well, we're glad you did, Mrs. Cole.
Was the car traveling fast or slow, would you say?
Oh, about medium, I'd say. They can't go too fast in the alley on account of the chuck holes.
What color was it?
Tan or brown. I don't know much about what kind it could be. I think you could call it a sedan.
Anything else, Dollar?
Not right now.
The officers you came in with will want to ask you a few more questions, and then they'll drive you home, Mrs. Cole.
No.
I want to thank you very much.
Well, I hope I've been some help.
Good night, Mrs. Cole.
Good night.
Nothing fits, Dollar. 3 witnesses on the other side of Boldrick's place swear they would have seen anybody running in the alley at that time. And this one says she saw a car leaving.
Oh, it's still early. I guess we'd better phone the hospital, find out if we can see him, huh?
Yeah. Yep. I'll put out an alarm on a brown or tan sedan, and then I'll call. Hello, Boldrick. How you feeling now?
Not so good. How come they tell me I'm not strong enough to see my wife and then they let you guys come in? I want to see her.
It'll only be a few minutes. We thought you'd like to know what they found out about the shooting.
Sure I would. What?
Well, enough to make us wonder if you're telling the truth about what happened.
I don't get you.
3 witnesses who live in your block say that a man didn't run down the alley after the shooting.
Well, I can't help what they said, can I?
But another witness said she saw a car drive away.
The more people we question, Boldrick, the less possible it seems that this man you talk about could have shot you. They'd have no reason to lie, so we've come back to you.
You haven't been telling the truth, have you?
Why should I do anything else?
What about this car that drove away?
I didn't see any car. I don't know anything about
Now,
it.
look, you've been evasive about this from the beginning. You told me you couldn't remember, but you had time to think before Dolan got here. And you gave him the story about this man.
We think you're protecting whoever shot you, Boldrick.
That's crazy.
We want you to tell us who it was.
I can't tell you. I don't know.
You won't tell us who was in the car?
Leave me alone.
All right, Boldrick. If you want to protect whoever tried to kill you, I guess it's your business. But we'll learn who it was.
Wait a minute. I deserve to get it. That don't make any difference to you, but it does to me. I don't want to hurt anybody anymore. That's why I won't tell you.
Now, take it easy, Boldrick.
There was only one way to stop me from hurting people.
What were you doing?
My ex-wife.
You were still seeing her?
I guess there was only one way to stop me. I was hurting her husband, my wife, and my friend.
Was her husband in the car, Boldrick?
I think we better call the doctor.
Was her husband in the car?
Yes, but I don't want to hurt him anymore.
Maybe we shouldn't have questioned him, huh? I'll call Dr. Carp.
We will return you to the second act of yours truly, Johnny Dollar, in just a moment. Johnny Dollar's listening fans will want to make a special note of Johnny's time change, beginning this coming Wednesday, June 20th, over most of these same CBS stations. Follow yours truly, Johnny Dollar, on his San Francisco search for a missing medico, a puzzling case Johnny calls the Malcolm Wish matter. Enjoy it when you hear yours truly, Johnny Dollar, moving to Wednesday nights on CBS, starting on the 20th, next Wednesday. And now with our star, Edmund O'Brien, we return you to the second act of yours truly, Johnny Dollar.
With Arthur Boldrick nearing the point of death, the next move was obvious. To bring in the man he had accused and arrange a formal identification and accusation. Sergeant Wright called two other officers to stand by the hospital and, in case we were too slow, get a deathbed statement. Then Wright and I left. The dying man's first wife, Anna, had married a man named Thomas Hood. We found their house in a slightly more desirable neighborhood, but not too far from where the Boldricks lived.
Yes?
Are you Mrs. Hood?
Yes.
Here you are. Here you are. Police. Is your husband at home?
No, he's out of town. What's the matter?
I think we'd better come in and talk to you then.
What do you want with me?
We want to talk to you about Arthur Boldrick.
What did he do?
He was shot this afternoon. Now, may we come in?
All right.
This is Mr. Dollar. He's a private investigator.
Mrs. Hood?
Art is dead?
No, but he's not expected to live.
Why did you come here?
We just left Boldrick a short time ago. He told us your husband shot him.
Oh, no. No, he didn't.
You said your husband was out of the city, Mrs. Hood. When did he leave?
This afternoon.
Why did he leave?
He went on business. He's a salesman. He's out of town. He couldn't have shot him.
What time did he leave?
It was this afternoon. I think about 4 or so.
He left this house about 4?
I think that's when it was.
Boldrick was shot a little after 5:30, between then and a quarter to 6.
Is your husband's car a sedan or a coupe or what?
Oh, sedan.
What color?
Tan.
A sedan driven by a man and described as brown or tan was seen leaving the alley near where Boldrick was shot. It was seen a few seconds after the shots were heard.
No. No, he didn't do it.
I'd better sit down, Mrs. Hood. Come on, sit down.
He didn't shoot him. I swear he didn't. I swear.
You mean he approved of your seeing Boldrick?
He did. Who told you that?
Boldrick?
My husband didn't know. I know I was wrong. I shouldn't have seen him. That doesn't make any difference. Except my seeing him didn't have anything to do with whatever happened. Tom did shoot him because he didn't know about it. And he mustn't know. He mustn't find out.
In spite of what you thought, it looks like he did know. Now, where is he, Mrs. Hood? We want to reach him tonight.
I won't tell you. He didn't have anything to do with it. And I can't let him find out about Art and me.
Mrs. Hood, according to the doctors, Boldrick won't live through the night. This is going to turn into a murder case. What we say to your husband about you isn't important in the least. Very few things are when it's murder.
He didn't know. He didn't have anything to do with it.
When do you expect to hear from him?
I don't know. Sometimes he phones, but never the first day out. Usually to say he'd have to stay out longer than he expected to.
We'll have to have more than that. We'll get in touch with his company.
I wish you'd listen to me once more. I tell you, Tom didn't do it. If you talk to him, all you're going to do is bust up our lives. That's all you're going to do.
Then I guess that's what we'll have to do. You ready to go, Dollar?
By the time we got back to the hospital, Arthur Boldrick was dead. He had made a deathbed statement and again had named Thomas Hood as the man who had shot him. While Sergeant Wright went to work on locating him, I stopped by the Boldrick house. It was the next-door neighbor, Will Wheeler,
I got a lot of drinks down there, and she finally went to sleep. I don't know what kind of shape she'd be in if you woke her up.
I won't bother her then. Her husband died about an hour ago.
Oh. Well, I sort of knew, I guess, after I talked to you this afternoon. Old Art. Sure going to miss him. He had a lot of faults. Everybody knew about those, I guess, but there were a lot of good things about him, too. Hardly anybody knew about them. Was there any more on the guy that killed him?
He changed his story. He finally told us Tom Hood had shot him.
Tom Hood? Anna's husband?
Yeah.
Well, I don't get it.
What?
Well, he's holding to one story and then changing it.
The first one didn't hold up. The police could find plenty of people who would have seen a man running away, but nobody that did. But a woman saw a car that checked with the one Hood drives. I guess you knew about Boldrick and his ex-wife.
Yeah, I still don't see why he told the first story and then changed it.
I don't either. He said he deserved to get shot, that he'd hurt a lot of people, and there was no other way to stop him. He said he didn't want to hurt Hood anymore.
And that's why he didn't say it was him. That's what I mean about the bad side of him and the good side.
Did his wife know about Anna?
I'm not sure. The cinch, I never talked to her. Oh, you think he told that first story to keep her from finding out?
It could be. The police will call in the morning. When she hears about it, tell her there are some insurance papers for her to sign, will you? I'll leave them now. The next morning, when I phoned Sergeant Wright at 10, things stood pretty much the same. Thomas Hood hadn't been located. He supposedly had left for Boston, where he was expected to check into the Royce Hotel, but he never reached there. The Massachusetts police were alerted, and we were sure that part of it was covered. I got to Wright's office at 10:45, and at 11:30 we were thrown a curve.
My name is Mandel. I read in the paper this morning about the shooting out north yesterday.
Well?
My friend said I was a fool for coming in to see you, but I work on radio repairs, and I delivered a set to some people in the next block that afternoon.
What time did you deliver it, Mr. Mandel?
About 5:30, a little after. I read how some woman saw a tan sedan going down that alley, and you were looking for it. Well, I'm pretty sure that was mine.
You drove through the alley?
Yeah, I did.
You're sure of the time?
You can ask the people who own the set. Their name is Olson in the next block.
And you followed the alley through the next block?
Yes, I did. The same way that dame said.
Did you hear the shots?
No, but I think I know why. That alley is bumpy, and I got a few loose bolts in that car. It's pretty noisy. But the car that dame spotted was mine. I'm sure of that.
Well, thanks, Mr. Mandel. That's very interesting information.
It was interesting, especially in the face of Boldrick's deathbed statement. As far as we could see, Mr. Mandel had no reason to lie. Sergeant Wright and I went back over everything we had. When we'd finished, there were only a few points from which to start the investigation again. This is Sergeant Wright, Mr. Wheeler. I don't believe you've met.
How do you do?
I do.
We hope Mrs. Boldrick is able to see us.
Yeah, I think she's in pretty good shape. What, has anything new developed?
Well, we think so, Mr. Wheeler. Where's Mrs. Boldrick?
She's here, in this one. I want to talk to you, Velma. This here is
Sergeant Wright.
How do you do?
Hello, Mrs. Boldrick. We want to cover this as quickly as possible. You know that your husband accused Thomas Hood of shooting him?
Will told me.
It was an... Do you believe it?
Said so.
You knew about him and his ex-wife?
No. Not till Will told me about what he said when he was dying.
You're sure of that?
He never talked about Anna.
Well, in spite of the fact that your husband accused Hood right up to the time he died, it looks like Hood didn't shoot him.
Why would he say it?
Must have been that he was trying to protect someone. But if you didn't know about him and Anna, he couldn't have been protecting you, because you wouldn't have had any reason to kill your husband.
So, who do you think he was protecting, Mrs. Boldrick?
I don't know.
Wait a minute. Art told so many stories. I don't get it.
The last one depended on a car. I told you about it. But it turned out not to be the one that Hood drove.
What was the matter with it?
Well, it looks like he was just trying too hard.
Only one or two people could have really seen whoever killed Boldrick. We've covered the alley both ways. We've covered the houses across the alley where the killer could have slipped through. This house and yours, Wheeler, are the only ones we didn't bother to check.
I can't do any more, Will.
Wait a minute.
What's the matter?
I can't do any more.
All right, I'm all right. All right.
It wasn't my idea. I went as far as I could. It was his idea.
Was it you he was protecting, Mrs. Boldrick?
It wasn't her fault. I mean, anyone would have done it. He's over too far.
Because of Anna.
Because of Anna. Yeah, whatever. She's as much to blame. I couldn't stay away from her, but she could have made him, and yesterday, with her husband out of town, it reached a peak. We all knew it would someday.
You seem to know quite a bit about it, Wheeler.
Yeah. I'm in it, too. I lied along with Art and Velma.
It's not Will's fault. He did it because he was a friend. He didn't lie. He just... I killed Art. That's what's important, isn't it?
Yes, it is, Mrs. Boldrick.
He was going to see her. He even told me. And I couldn't help what I did. I followed him out and shot him. But I'm sorry. I'm sorry I killed him.
Expense account item 2, miscellaneous, $75. Expense account total, $77.30. Remarks? According to precedent, Mrs. Boldrick will probably get one of those widow's specials from 3 to 20 on second-degree murder. That should have her out of prison in a little over 2 years. So the company has that length of time to figure out ways and means to avoid payment of her claim. Yours truly, Johnny Dollar.
Beginning next week, yours truly, Johnny Dollar, will be heard on Wednesday at 9 o'clock Eastern Daylight Saving Time. Consult your papers for the time change in your area. Yours truly, Johnny Dollar, stars Edmund O'Brien in the title role and is written by Gil Dowd with music by Wilbur Hatch. Edmund O'Brien can soon be seen in the Paramount Pictures production, Warpath. Featured in tonight's cast were Edgar Barrier, Parley Bear, Jeanette Nolan, John McIntyre, Wally Mayer, Virginia Gregg, Gene Bates, and Harry Lang. Yours truly, Johnny Dollar, is transcribed in Hollywood by Jaime Del Valle. This is Dick Cutting inviting you to join us next Wednesday at 9 o'clock Eastern Daylight Saving Time when Edmund O'Brien returns as
Yours truly, Johnny Dollar.
Here is a really novel crime-busting switch. Instead of chercher la femme, it takes a femme to do the detective work on tonight's action-packed Gangbusters Manhunt on most of these same CBS stations. In this fast-paced Gangbusters chase, it takes a lady detective to trap a shrewd safe-cracking trio when her male counterparts fail to get the evidence. And now, stay tuned for 5 minutes of the latest news. This is CBS, the Columbia Broadcasting System.
Welcome back. Well, I have to appreciate that Boldrick did try to protect his wife. However, my opinion of him is diminished by the fact that he tried to lay the blame on the poor guy whose wife he was cheating with. Certainly a fairly complex plot. This is one of the Johnny Dollar episodes where they follow along kind of a police procedural line. And this one even had a Dragnet-esque message about the importance of coming forward. Had that guy from the TV repair shop not come forward with his story, it's possible a wrong man might have been convicted for murder. Or at least the marriage broken up, as it was, wasn't really necessary to cause any disturbance in that regard. The one thing about this episode, honestly, I don't get is the end part where Johnny tells the insurance company that they've got about 2 years to figure out how they're going to refuse to pay out on the insurance policy. When I heard that, I thought, how about we won't pay out because you killed him? That's a kind of standard clause in insurance contracts. So that was a little bit of a slip by the writers. But overall, a pretty interesting episode. The change in day was important just for the length of the shows. If you've noticed the past few weeks, the shows have actually only been about 25 minutes, commercials included. That's because after the show, they aired 5-minute CBS Evening News. At the new Wednesday time slot, that doesn't happen. So as I'm looking at the recordings for the rest of the O'Brien series, they're all about 30 minutes in length. A little less, but just about 30 minutes in length. All right, before we go, one final obligation. Usually, when we announce that we're going to eventually do a new show, we go ahead and make available to our app users on the Android and iPhone app, as well as those who are premium subscribers, to be able to take a listen to one episode of the show, provided there's more than one episode available. We forgot to do that last week with Dick Tracy, so this week, as a special bonus, you can preview Dick Tracy, one of the 2 episodes that are in circulation, unhosted, so that will be taken care of. All right, well, that'll do it for now. We will be back on Monday with Ideal in Crime, and next Friday, another episode of yours truly, Johnny Dollar. And remember, on Tuesday, we're starting our new series of Rogues Gallery. Join us then. In the meanwhile, your comments appreciated at box13@greatdetectives.net. Join our nearly 750 friends over on Facebook, facebook.com/radiodetectives. And you can always give us a call, 208-991-4783. From Boise, Idaho, this is your host, Adam Graham, signing off.